everybody. This is Josh McKinney, and I just want to welcome you to episode 193 of the I Suck at Jiu-Jitsu show. So today I have a fun one for you guys. I'm really excited to share this interview with you guys. Today, you get to get introduced to another one of my new black belts. My black belt, Justin Kichler. Cool thing about Justin and I is Justin really was, besides my dad, was one of my first consistent training partner. Justin started just a few months after I did under the same coach and has a different jiu-jitsu journey that I did. But there was just a really cool time for Justin and I where we were coming up and getting to live a part of the jiu-jitsu lifestyle, being kids competitors that I think most jiu-jitsu people will never get to experience. And also, coming up in the Midwest at a time that it was just crazy and so much fun to come up in the Midwest. And we get into all that. Justin's brand of humor is more offensive than anyone else's, and so I'm not even going to apologize for it. It's just who Justin is as a person. He's hilarious. You guys are going to laugh at this episode for sure. You might get offended. If you're a big Chris Benoit fan, still a big Chris Benoit supporter, he didn't do it or something like that, maybe skip this one. A lot of Chris Benoit jokes on this one. I don't know, maybe enough time has passed and it's just time to do that. But regardless, Justin really does a great job in this episode and just has a really cool jiu-jitsu story. And for me, it's such a special episode to get to record. It's such a special thing to get to have promoted him to black belt, considering we started together and how much we came up together. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into Justin Kichler's jiu-jitsu story. Justin Kichler.
Josh McKinney.
How are you doing?
Wonderful.
Good.
Really sore from our workout, so that's great.
I didn't tell you guys. I didn't make a big note of it, but I got approval from my dad. I got a doctor's note since I compete this weekend. I only had to do stuff at 70 to 80%. And so I did it about 40%. And I feel fine, man.
Yeah, I'm really sore because I didn't do that.
Yeah. I would do that next time that you get the chance.
I might just start doing that from now on because I feel like I've hit my benchmark of strength. And I'm just done lifting weights. It's like whenever I got my black belt, I'm just gonna quit doing jiu-jitsu too. So I'm pretty much done with jiu-jitsu. I'm gonna train once a week. I'm gonna come in.
I think you should just retire
really
completely.
Out of shape. Yeah, you gotta keep up appearances.
Well, just bring in your gi, walk onto the mat, walk around, do a circle, put your gi in your bag, go home.
That would make us. I kind of did that yesterday with the gi. I put the gi on. Nobody's training in the gi. Everybody switched to no gi, and I was no gi first. So I was like, okay. So I took it back off and finished my rounds. And
then you had a gi to wash.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I'm gonna get staffed because of this. I think that if I didn't teach, I would have definitely quit already. Yeah. So man, I have to be here on Thursdays to be your coach.
That's true. Somebody has to do it. Somebody has to give me information and keep me on track. And honestly, a lot of somebody's kind of have to do it.
Yeah,
it takes a village.
Yeah, it does. Especially at Head Nod HQ, where it's one big village, but a very dysfunctional one.
Yes.
So
man, I can't agree more. I can't agree more with that statement. So I thought a fun place to start would be the first time that you and I ever met. Do you remember the first time? I remember it vividly.
Do you remember it? I remember it. I don't know if it's going to be the same story because it's probably a little bit toned down for you, but I was 16 or 17, I can't remember. And I come into the hit squad and it's full of MMA fighters. And I'm afraid of these guys because they're big and muscular. And then there's just this fat Asian kid sitting with his dad. I didn't know it was your dad because he's white.
Yeah, he's a white guy.
Why is this guy hanging out with this kid? So I thought that was weird. So immediately, the whole thing, I was just there's something weird going on over here. I'm not sure what's going on. And then
you're like, this adopted chubby kid coming into class.
That's clearly not his real kid. So then eventually I get you for a round, and you absolutely just crushed me. And you crushed my soul that day, too, because I was a lot taller than you were, but you were probably bigger in weight, but you killed me. That's what I remember our first meeting being. You submitted me 5 times because I had no clue what was going on. And I had heard that you were good. Like, I'd heard, like, I think Derek told me, he's like, oh, you know, Josh is really good at jiu-jitsu, and then you just smashed me.
So, man, maybe this was a terrible intro then, because I swore that the first time that we ever trained together, you triangled me.
No.
Are you lying to me? When was that? Because that was super early. There was a really early...
It was really early. And for the people watching at home, I've submitted Josh 2 times. 2 times. And one of them was then. And the other one was, like, he let me put him in a triangle. So I've submitted him 1 time.
But you put me to sleep when I let you put me in a
That's
triangle.
that was the thing. Back then, it was okay to, like, choke each other unconscious. Now it's frowned upon. But back then, we were, you know, just like, you could do whatever you wanted.
We were teenagers.
It was the Wild West, too. Like, nobody cared in that gym. You could, like, kill someone in that gym, and they'd be like, oh, well, no big deal.
I think it's a teen thing. I really think that we may not even realize, but I think the teenagers at Head Nod HQ were choking each other unconscious, going, you couldn't submit me if you started in a triangle.
Yeah, they probably are. I just try not to watch, you know?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, no, that was me one time. The time I triangled you was a no-gi class on a Wednesday.
Okay.
And we were going, and you had beat me up like 2 rounds before, and I was like, I have a money move. I'm going to try it. And I hit it on you. And I choked you, and I triangled you, and I felt so good that day. But that was like 6 months after our meeting, and you absolutely thrashing me for 6 months straight.
Oh, wow.
It was right before I competed for the first time. It was right before the Arnolds.
Oh, okay. You're right. That was, man, I get my story confused.
I will never forget submitting you. I'm going to, like, you know, when I die and my life flashes before my eyes, it's going to be just a bunch of nothing, and it's going to be me triangling you as a kid, and then it's going to be like, yep, that's it. This is where your life, beginning and end. As
it should be. The beauty of submitting Josh McKinney is you never have to ask yourself, did Josh let me have this? Like, did Josh, he was teaching me a lesson. He was trying to, no, never. No, this dude's willing to die to not tap.
Yeah. Speaking of triangles, I had you in one like a year ago. You remember that?
Tell me about it.
I put you in a triangle, and I'm trying to finish it. And
am I talking trash at this point?
Yes.
That means I'm in trouble.
At the time, you'd come out with like some kind of like thing, like an instructional where you're like, I'm impossible to triangle, and I have you in one, and I'm like, that's it. I lock it up. I'm squeezing as hard as I can. You're just looking at me, and I'm like, okay, this isn't working. So I cut the angle, start pulling your head down, because people finish triangles like weird. They always like try and touch their knees together instead of doing like the old school Ryan Hall like crunch kick. So I'm doing that. It's working kind of. You're kind of like gurgling a little bit, and then my legs die, and you start talking trash again, and you get out. And I text you the next day. I'm like, bro,
I remember.
I can't move my legs.
Yeah. But I was in it for like a while too.
I think it was like a 5-minute round, and you were probably in it for 4 minutes.
I was really thinking 3. That's where I was going. But yeah, that sounds about right.
I went guillotine. You reached back to my hips. I pushed through. I was like, man, that was slick. And then you were just in it the whole time. The whole time I'm like, I really like killed my own confidence because I'm like, I couldn't finish the last triangle I had him in, 10 years ago. He was in a Murillo Santana's triangle forever.
For days, dude.
Forever. He didn't finish him, and I'm not Murillo Santana. And then also I was like, he has like this instructional that says he can't be triangled. So I basically killed myself.
Bro, Andrew Wiltsey triangled me after that instructional came out.
I know he did.
I can be triangled.
I know. He triangled you. I think that this was like, he triangled you after I had you in that triangle.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, that was a while ago then.
It was a long time ago.
Are you sure? Because I fought Wiltsey in like 19.
Yeah, I think it was right before I got right before I got my brown belt. Shoot. I said a year ago, but it was really like
that was a long time ago, man. Whew, we're getting old, and that's a big topic that I wanted to kind of discuss. Not as much how old I am, but how old you've gotten. You know what I mean?
I feel old too. That's the best part. Is that like right now I feel worse than I ever have.
So okay, we talk about perspective of your first class. What were you? What made you come to jiu-jitsu for your first time?
It was really weird. So like growing up, I was always like a roughhousey kind of kid. I was always like wrestling with my cousin, he's like 5 years older than me, so he was always like beating me up, throwing me around. And then right around the time that I started training, I have a half brother. So my brother comes over and he's like beating me up all the time too. And I'm like, man, like I've got to start like beating these guys up. But anytime I like wrestled around with my friends, like we did like the typical like Granite City white trash, like there's a trampoline in the front yard and we're all WWF wrestlers.
Yeah.
WWE, don't sue me. So, like,
good call.
like,
World Wildlife Federation was coming after you there.
Exactly. Well, like, you remember, like, Dean Malenko? They call him, like, the master of, like, 1,000 holds and stuff. He, like, did the cross-face crippler before Chris Benoit. Like, you can't talk about Chris Benoit, so whenever you talk about the cross-face crippler, you got to talk about, like, Dean Malenko, who didn't kill his whole family.
That's true. I mean, that's speculation.
So I used to get that on my friend. No, it happened.
Oh, okay.
No,
I wasn't sure.
He murdered him. Oh. Josh, what a dark note to this.
You want to talk about a dark note? You've sent me a meme that's like something like, it was like on Christmas Day, and it's like a guy opening socks for Christmas, and then he's slowly like morphing into Chris Benoit. Yeah. So don't give me that, dude.
You're right. I think that the Chris Benoit jokes are funny. That's controversial.
I
think it's funny.
I don't think just all of them are inherently funny, but I do think enough time has passed that you could make a good joke about it.
You can make a good joke about it. So, like, it kind of depends. There's probably, like, some really messed up ones that I wouldn't laugh at.
On a podcast.
But, yeah, like, right now. But that one with the socks is the funniest one. There was another one that I was going to bring up, but I already forgot what it was. I used to have, like, a folder on my phone that was just Chris Benoit jokes. He was my favorite wrestler, bro. Him and Brian Pillman.
Those are rough choices, dude. Those are really bad choices.
You want to know what's really crazy about Brian Pillman? So, I don't know how this is now a wrestling podcast. So, Brian Pillman overdoses on drugs, right?
Yes.
I think it was 1997. The first ever Hell in a Cell match is in St. Louis. Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker. My parents get tickets. We go. They announced...
You're 7, 6?
I think I'm 6.
Yeah.
They announced during the intermission that they found Brian Pillman dead in his hotel room because he was supposed to be on that show. He had a match, and I was like excited for it. Dude overdoses and like wherever and just doesn't show up, and everybody's like, "Oh man, is the match canceled?" They announced in the middle, "Hey, he's dead," and I'm just like, "Whoa!" My favorite wrestler, dude. Like it was him and Shawn Michaels, top 2.
See, Shawn Michaels is a good choice.
He is. Yeah, he's. Interesting guy.
Yeah, heartbreak kid, man.
It kind of depends on like what era of Shawn Michaels. Like whenever I first got, when I first got into wrestling, it was like he's like kind of like doing like the heartbreak kid gimmick, and then as it went on, he turned into like the Generation X, and then we got into like the good stuff. Like Attitude Era really kicked off. So I wasn't a huge fan at the beginning, and then kind of right towards the end, I got really into it.
I was kind of I was a heartbreak kid fan too. I would say that I liked every rendition of Shawn Michaels more than I liked every rendition of The Undertaker.
Oh, for sure. Well, they had the really so this is going to be embarrassing to admit, but the Undertaker, like where he like came out on the motorcycle and stuff, to like Limp Bizkit and like Kid Rock, like American Badass era Undertaker. I really liked that version.
Oh, no, Justin.
I know. I told you it's embarrassing to admit, but it was just because, like, I don't know. I was like, this is also embarrassing. I was, like, really into Kid Rock at the time, too. So, like, you put, like, Undertaker, one of my favorite wrestlers, American Badass, like, my favorite song at the time, and then, like, mash them together. I'm like, this is some cool shit. I'm into this. And then that gimmick wore out fast for me. It was the bandanas, and, like, he used to carry the chain around, and I don't know.
Yeah, and but it just didn't fit, man.
No, it didn't.
It was like when they serve you Mexican for the first course, and it's like the best Mexican that you ever have, and then they come out with Italian food for the second course, and it's the best Italian you've ever had, but you're like, I thought we were eating Mexican, and then they go right back to flan for dessert.
I think what's weird about it is because right before that gimmick, you had the gimmick of like he was like the cult leader and he was like crucifying people on that weird looking cross.
Yeah,
that was pretty cool. And it was like dark and spooky. And then immediately like he comes out and he's like riding a motorcycle and he's like got like a chain wallet.
I dare say I'd consistently still be watching wrestling if they just never ended the gimmick of him fighting Kane. Yeah. If they were just fighting every single week. There was a different thing, and Paul Bearer was, killing people. I would still be watching.
Yeah, the ghost, like they just like zombified Paul Bearer, like the actual Paul Bearer who's been dead for years. They just bring his corpse out in a wheelchair.
Well, I mean, he would also be undead, and so
it's true. He's been undead the whole time.
Yeah, it would work.
Anyway, Brian Pillman is dead.
Okay.
Hell in a Cell.
Okay, right? So Brian Pillman's dead at Hell in a Cell.
And then that made me want
I'm glad we stopped our tangent that we were on to start back on Brian Pillman.
Dude, loose cannon, man. Flying Brian. Dude he had an excellent gimmick, and then, really kicked off and, started doing like heroin and cocaine and died. Now his son wrestles for like AEW or something.
I didn't realize that. Mm-hmm. I didn't realize that.
Good.
So back to jiu-jitsu.
So anyway,
back to jiu-jitsu. Why did you start training jiu-jitsu again? You were at the point of trampolines and Brian Pillman dying.
Brian Pillman and Dean Malenko. So, yeah, because we couldn't talk about Chris Benoit. Did you know he killed his whole family?
Oh, shoot, did he?
Yeah, allegedly because him and Eddie Guerrero were gay together, too.
Really? So, you've heard that? I didn't think that seemed viable, but I did think
I said allegedly.
Yeah, it could have been... Yeah, I definitely had to do something with his death, and probably big steroids.
If my best friend dies and my brain is Swiss cheese from doing flying headbutts, I kill my family.
Yeah.
Yeah, who wouldn't? It's a sensible thing. So anyway, I'm beating these kids up on the trampoline. I'm hitting them with the cross-face crippler just over and over. And I'm like, man, I need to learn more submissions. So like, where do I go to learn submissions? Do you think I'm like, okay, MMA, and like I was watching MMA at the time. MMA, they're doing submissions. Those are real submissions that work. Or do you think I like bought like a wrestling hold book from like 1920? Which one do you think I did?
I'm gonna go with B.
Yes, that's what I did. I went to the library and I bought this like crappy like hammer locks, or like all they do, they're like doing like cop locks behind the back. So I just started hitting these kids with that, and I'm like, dude, I'm getting pretty good at this. So that was kind of already in my brain. So cut to like, you remember like Saturday mornings, they used to have like the UFC Wired show that came on like Channel 11, and it'd be like old fights. So they're showing an old fight, and it's Matt Hughes is fighting somebody. I think it was whenever he fought GSP the third time or second time maybe. The one he lost.
Yeah, not one of the good ones.
It wasn't the one he lost by armbar. It was the one where he got head kicked. That's the
where he got
one,
head
right?
kicked. Yeah. That would have been. I think that might have been the third one, dude.
Was it? I think the third one he got like hip tossed into an armbar, and he yells like tap tap tap. I think the second one he gets hit with like a big head kick and then just elbowed to death.
Man, I thought it was the third one. The reason I think it was the third one is because I think Hughes wins back the title, and he was fighting somebody else. He was fighting like someone from that era, Frank Trigg or something like that, and he got injured. And they said you could fight anybody, and he's like, well, I want a rematch of GSP. I thought that GSP had armbarred him. Maybe you're right. Maybe GSP just out-wrestled him the third fight, and that was one of the, regardless,
I think
he lost the fight.
Yeah, he did. So anyway, Matt Hughes, it's one of the fights they lost. That's the only important part. But while they're announcing him, they say from Hillsborough, Illinois. And like, I've seen this dude fight before, but I never realized they was from Hillsborough, which isn't that far from us. It's like, what, like an hour, 45 minutes away, maybe? Uh-huh. So I see that, and I was like, oh, dude, that's cool. This guy's probably, like, cool. Like, he's, like, from the Midwest. And, like, at the time, like, we didn't have anything, dude. Like, we had, like, the Cardinals. Like, you know what I mean? And, like, Mark McGwire was off steroids and off the team for a long time.
And so it wasn't even worth watching baseball, man.
No. So, no, baseball.
Get me in the steroid sports,
baseball
dude.
Post
Get me
steroids.
in jiu-jitsu,
yeah.
You know?
Dude, you can do all the steroids you want in jiu-jitsu. You can get a ban and still go compete in other places. It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm. Even in the country. Not even like you have to flee. You just don't, you just like literally you're banned from this one organization.
And they'll probably like not drug test you again. Like you could pop and then they'll be like, oh no, you got a ban. And then like you come back, you're probably not getting tested for a long time after.
I don't know. Felipe, he's popped quite a few. I think he popped twice, and so, and he was kind of, I think he kind of liked them too. I don't know I really think that they just expect you, like, dude, why are you not off cycle right now?
Yeah.
We're testing you to appease the white people,
you know?
And, to appease these old baseball fans that were like, okay, we ruined baseball now,
Do you think that they let them know? You think that they get heads up? Think that they get like a card slipped under their door? Like they win a gold medal and they're like, here, bro, don't.
I think that I want to say they've just been testing all the podium people anymore. Yeah. I want to say that that's the truth. I don't know, man.
Here's my thing.
I don't speak the language,
if you're doing steroids, you're doing it to win. And you know that the winners get tested. So why, before your tournament, wouldn't you cycle off?
It makes no sense.
It doesn't. And then you're caught.
And maybe
you have to give up your gold medal.
Maybe we're just two people that don't understand steroids at all, and maybe it's harder to cycle off than we think it is. But to me, it seems like it would be a science that you would be like, hey, if you end your cycle at this time and you like drink a gallon of water, you're gonna be good.
I don't know a lot about like doing steroids. I know a lot about how steroids work and like what steroids do what, just because like I watch a lot of like More Plates, More Dates. Shout out to Derek, I guess, who's never gonna see this. But
dang, dude, how are you gonna hit him with the never gonna see this shout out?
Like,
maybe he starts jiu-jitsu, he starts losing, and he's like, I suck at jiu-jitsu. I'm gonna get on YouTube and type that in, and then it pops up.
Dude, that's true, but I probably not.
He's probably stopped listening to the episode before he got to the shout out. Regardless,
that's true. He was probably like, are these guys talking about wrestling? Is this a wrestling podcast? So
their sarcasm is so deadpan and aggressive too.
We can't tell if they're joking or not. Will this guy really kill his family? It's yet to be seen. So anyway, let's circle back. So
okay,
I'm typing in, like Matt Hughes UFC in my mom and dad's computer that's in the kitchen for some reason. They didn't I don't know what's going on with that. But
it's got to be 2007, right? 2008,
it was 2007 because the Hit Squad opened in March of 2008. Or no, it was 2008, very early, like probably February, like a month before the gym opens. So I type that in and it pops up. And like the first thing that pops up on Google is Matt Hughes to open gym in Granite City, Illinois. And literally, I go, what the fuck? I'm like, are you serious? Like, this guy's opening a gym in Granite City, Illinois, the place I live.
Your parents were just cool with you saying the F word?
They weren't there, but I was saying the F word at the time.
Okay. So like consistently, Tom and Cindy wouldn't have been mad.
My mom, so like I got a pretty good story. I mean, I don't know if you want to talk about the time that I said the F word in front of my mom and she was like, what did you say? And yelled at me because I was playing a video game.
We're going to get this story eventually. Let's hear it. Let's hear this. We're going to get to the Justin jiu-jitsu story.
Eventually we're going to get there. I don't know how long it's going to take. Very fragmented, this podcast. So, which I knew would happen. I went on fully expecting this. So, basically, yeah, they would probably have been. My dad would have been cool with it. My mom would have been just kind of disappointed, like kind of like sad face it. And then on the inside, she would have been like, well, I knew based on the way that we raised him that this would happen. So we knew the person he would be. So I look it up. I'm like, that's insane. So I click on the article. It's like a Riverbender article. And they're like talking about how like the gym is going to open on March 8th. Come down, we're going to have like an open mat, or an open house beforehand, sign up. And I was like, that's really cool. Well, I was going to go hunting that day. So my parents went for me and they got me a shirt signed by Matt and all this stuff. And I was like, that's really cool. And I started talking to them. I'm like, you guys, I really want to like do, and like at the time it wasn't I want to do jiu-jitsu. It's like, I want to do MMA. And I was like 112 pounds. And I was like 5'7".
And you were 16?
I can't remember if I was 16 or 17. I mean, I could do the math, but it's not worth it. So in there somewhere. Like I think at this point I was 16. Yeah, I was 16 and I turned 17 that June.
You were old enough to not be 112 pounds, but you were 112 pounds.
For sure it should not have been 112 pounds. For sure it should not have been anywhere near that. Literally zero muscle mass, just bone. I was like a scarecrow. So I was just like long and lanky and then super skinny. Like my legs were the same size from my calf to my hip. Like there's no quad. there's no. It's just like a stick, like a pig leg.
They were like when you have like big things of wrapping paper, and you get the roll afterwards that you use as a lightsaber.
Yes,
like exactly. They were like that.
It was like that, 100%. Just like I got like pretty broad shoulders, and they were just like withered. I looked like I was starving, but I was eating all the time. I don't know what it was. I don't know like if it was just like puberty was like very unkind to me and made me grow taller than my muscle mass could keep up with, or what, but. It was not the look, I'll tell you that. And it definitely wasn't a fighter's physique. So I told my parents, and like, man, like to their credit, like they've always been really supportive of anything I do. And they were like, yeah, if that's something you want to do, we'll help pay for it eventually, but you're going to need to get a job and like support your own hobby. So I go and they go to the open mat, and then I did like a trial class. I can't remember when, but it was somewhere in between my birthday and March. Mm-hmm. I do a trial class. And I did the MMA class, and it was like one of those things where like my mind was blown because I walk out there and there's like these guys I've seen on TV, and you're like, this is insane. They're like, all right, dude, shadow box. And I'm like, I don't know what that means. I've watched Rocky.
I'm not a ninja. What do you mean shadow box? Like, what do you? It's pretty bright in here. I don't even have a shadow.
Is it bright in here right now? I've noticed you.
Oh, get out of here with that. You can't make Asian jokes on the podcast, man. We have a huge Asian listenership. You'll get canceled.
Oh, no.
You can't be walking on the podcast with a mullet talking about Kid Rock and the Undertaker and the motorcycle being your favorite Undertaker.
Dude, not now, though.
And then hit an Asian joke.
Look, back then the Asian jokes would have been way worse. Right now they're watered down.
Very true. I think even now, not back then, I think a lot of the jokes... I think we've been pretty PG on the podcast.
We could not have, if we did this podcast in like 2009, 2010, would have been gone.
Modern Warfare 2, Justin and Josh doing this podcast
They would have been chasing us like Frankenstein's monster. They would have just been pitchforking us in the back. We would have been dead, strung up in the streets for the things we said to people on Modern Warfare, especially.
Oh, yeah. I'm so glad there's like people that will talk about like, yeah, you know, if you were to get famous, you got to go through like your old Facebook and purge everything, your old Twitter and purge everything. Imagine if they had recordings of Modern Warfare 2 trash talk. One, I mean, I would be cool with being canceled just so I could have the recordings because the trash talk was legendary. I perfected mom jokes doing that. And like, I still use a lot of the jokes to this day.
Mine was much more personal attacks. Not so much their mom, but like if I heard like that they talked funny, on it. Just jump on them immediately. And then that would get in their head for the next match. Because now, I don't know how many people play Call of Duty now, but the lobbies break up. So you're never with the same group of guys from game to game. Back then you would play, and then you'd play against those guys again.
Yeah.
So if you could get into their head that first game, the second game, they're really out of it. By the third game, they're like rage quitting because you're like just roasting them the whole time.
And so you start jiu-jitsu.
So I started doing jiu-jitsu. And there was another funny thing about Call of Duty real quick. Dude, this was...
We're going to get to Call of Duty, man. We're not to the point where you and I are playing Call of Duty together in the story. Call of Duty's going to come up.
All right, that's
We
fine.
didn't do anything else, Justin. We did nothing else ever but play Call of Duty and jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, you're right.
We're only talking jiu-jitsu right now. Eventually, we'll talk Call of Duty.
You're right. I don't know. That's fine.
You don't have to like hit your talking points on Call of
Did you
Duty
just break
now.
your own neck?
I just popped my neck, you know, like it's okay.
Anyway, it sounded aggressive. I can't do that. I popped my shoulder. So I show up for this trial class. It's wild. I learned a bunch of wrestling, learned some striking. I did they had a boxing coach, a wrestling coach, and then wrestling/MMA coach, and then Kyle Watson, our mutual friend, was
Why would you go in quotes of friend?
I don't know, friend. I don't because I want him to see it and then ask me about it later.
Kyle won't listen to the show.
Hey, well, I'm gonna send it to him.
Nah, Kyle won't. Just simply because it's this show.
I'll just go hang out with him and I'll like play it. On my phone.
Play the clip.
So anyway, I meet Kyle, and at the time, Kyle was a purple belt, I think, and like, dude was super nice, and like, I was a super shy kid. I was very shy. I was very like closed off. Like at this point in my life, I had some friends, but I wasn't like, I was basically just like riding dirt bikes, being a white trash kid, and I was like real big into being like a survivalist. So I was like just camping out in my backyard and stuff.
You already covered that when you said being a white trash kid.
That's true.
You know?
But it was like a super white trash.
That being said, I was doing the same thing in my backyard. Even, keep in mind, I'm only half Asian.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I kind of discount the white part, but like, I don't know. It's not as funny to make fun of the white trash part.
Yeah,
I've
that's
seen
true.
you do some very white trash things.
Probably more white trash things than you've seen me eat fried rice.
Well, I've never seen you do math.
Yeah, exactly.
So
I did hit some quick math on Ross yesterday, and he looked at me like, oh my gosh, he's like, how did you calculate that so fast? And I'm like, Ross, you went to college, dude. There weren't Asian people in college? Like,
they don't let them in college anymore. They just get skipped straight through. They give them a degree.
Oh, I don't think that's true.
I don't know if that one's gonna make the edit.
It'll make the edit. I have an Asian gang at Watson Martial Arts. I have no Asians at my gym, but at Watson Martial Arts.
We got Jeff Kotani. He's Asian.
Is he?
Looks Asian.
Holy cow, he might be. I thought he was Mexican. I'm just joking. His last name's Kotani. You're right.
He's either Asian or we're shining a flashlight at him constantly.
We do have it. We have one, and he's.
There is just one.
Well, I mean, and me. There's 1.5.
No, you don't count.
1.5. No. But anyway, I have an Asian crew at Watson Martial Arts, man. They're like, we're all homies.
Yeah, well, if you come in here on like an open mat, we have tons of Asian people. I think that's kind of like the
thing. It's all of Watson Martial Arts people.
It's the thing about being in St. Louis too. There's a pretty big Asian population. Like a lot of them do jiu-jitsu, I think. Asians and Bosnians, man.
That's true. That is very true. Anyway.
So I do the trial class. I meet Kyle. Kyle's a super cool dude. This is the longest story ever. We're never gonna get to like the good stuff because I'm like, here's my life story.
We've already gotten to the good stuff, man.
Also, did you guys know that the 2003 version of The Undertaker is the best version, simply because of the motorcycle?
Dude, that's just brutal.
So I meet Kyle, and like I said at the time, I was just like white trash shy kid, and like Kyle was like super nice, and like the rest of like. The fact that I even got on the mats was a miracle because I was like a nervous kid. I was like nervous about going. And I remember I told myself, like, we're just going to try it. If you don't like it, you can just leave. You didn't pay any money yet. I meet Kyle, and Kyle becomes like my spirit guide through the world of jiu-jitsu. He's just like the nicest guy, and he was so genuine to me. He was just like, hey man, like, here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna get you good at jiu-jitsu and all this stuff. Like he like kind of like laid it out at first. And like I kept coming, and then eventually I signed up full on, and I meet you. We become really good friends. We were like each other's first actual training partner. Mm-hmm. So like having a guy that I could come in there and meet up with, and every day we're training partners in class, and we're getting better together. Mm-hmm. And then we start training with Kyle kind of privately. That kind of stuff like really cemented, like I wouldn't be doing jiu-jitsu today if it wasn't for that.
And it's interesting to think about when you get like, for us, we both have a very unique perspective. We started jiu-jitsu before we were adults.
Yeah.
And we grew up in jiu-jitsu. We trained it a bunch. We got to have all these great experiences. But also when you think about it, like we now have kids that are doing that exact same thing, that are with us, that we treat way worse than Kyle treated us.
Oh, for sure.
We should definitely feel bad about it. But also Kyle didn't make us tough. He didn't torture test us enough. He
beat me up pretty good.
Yeah, he would beat us down, man. I dare say that like from 14 to 18 years old, I was butterfly swept at least 10,000 times.
Oh, dude, for real, like that in daily Hiva. Like I still to this day, someone puts me in daily Hiva, I'm just butchering through it because of just being in Kyle's daily Hiva for years. Years. And like I really only train Nogi now, so people do the really dumb daily Hiva where they just grab my wrist. I'm like, no, dude, I'm passing now.
I'll kill you.
Nobody's ever gonna do this to me again.
So this is kind of the part of the story that I thought that we would probably have the most with, because it's both of our perspectives. That really was, for years for us, we were main travel partner, main training partner, main sparring partner, coach each other at tournaments. Yeah. It's just like we were just 17-year-old kids, the type that you see that you're like, these freaking 17-year-old blue belts just came and smashed these adults at this tournament because they don't do anything other than do jiu-jitsu.
That's all we did. All we did was jiu-jitsu, Call of Duty, like you said, and then I had like this like part-time job working for my aunt and uncle, and it was funny because at the time, like now, especially, like I'm like the Nogi guy at the gym. Like I teach a Nogi class. I only train Nogi. It was a weird switch I made. But at the time, like I was working on Wednesdays because that was Nogi night, and I was like, Nogi's stupid. I'm only going to train Nogi. So I worked like that, and then like Saturday nights when there was no class, and then Sunday nights when there was no class. So I'm training full-time. We were training full-time, and you and I are training 2-3 times a day sometimes too. And then we would go into the pro class, and like I don't want to like blow up any of the professional fighters that I've submitted, but I've submitted some good guys, and I watched you murder some good guys who were professional fighters in the UFC at the time. And you were a child.
And we were literally, I was probably 16 when we were doing that. One, that was just crazy to think about where the level of jiu-jitsu was at the time, because these were guys that were considered grapplers in MMA.
Submitting guys
in the UFC.
MMA.
Like, And so that was super interesting. Also stands to just how good of a coach Kyle was.
Oh, dude, amazing. And like Kyle would kind of like give us like, he would be like, hey, like this guy's coming into the pro class, like go get some rounds with him. And we would, and then we'd beat him up. And Kyle is still to this day. I don't train with him as much now, obviously, but he's a terrific coach. Like the dude is amazing at what he does, and he can build students so well. And that's kind of what I've tried to bring as a coach too. I've tried to take students and kind of build them into something, give them a game plan. He was always good at like, hey man, go out there and do what you want, but here's what you should be working on. And that's kind of what I think you should do. But that really got us, like we got to a really high level, especially for the time. Like at the time, I really think that we were probably like maybe like high-level purple belts for 2009, 2010.
Yeah.
Like we were killing people in tournaments.
And that was, it was such a fun time. I couldn't even tell you how long we did it for.
It was a while.
That's kind of the thing that I have found with, even kind of with the crew that we have now that compete. Something I tell them is like, I know it feels like this is going to be forever, but the truth is it's not forever, so you have to just enjoy it, because I look back to how many stories I tell, how many memories we've made in those groups. Do you have anything that stands out to you when it comes to like stories that we competing as kids, training as kids, anything specific that you would want to shout out?
Man, I've got a bunch. I've got probably everything funny that ever happened. I think that I've got two that I think are pretty funny that I don't know. One you probably won't think is funny, but I was so small I never had to cut weight. So I was always competing up a weight class. So I never really cut weight as a kid. You, however, did. And I remember that there was
always had the you know what I'm doing right now as we sit here and talk? I'm drinking black coffee, and that's all I'm having because I'm cutting weight, you know?
So, yeah, and I'm enjoying a delicious sugary drink that you can't have, which is just how it always was back then, too. So, like, you're always like, man, like, I'm cutting weight. And I'd always be like, yeah, dude, that sucks. Like, that's dumb. I'm not going to do that.
I guess I tell the students that this is not going to last forever, but some things do.
Some things do. There's always going to be a constant. Like, literally, like, in jiu-jitsu, my constant has been, like, I've had to cut weight, like, a handful of times because, like, the IBJJF started coming close to us. So I would go do those tournaments. I could cut weight to make, like, 126 or whatever. At the time, I was, like, 135. But what was I talking about, man? Funny stories. So I got it. I'm sorry. I was about to jump back into wrestling. I was like, hey, dude, do you remember the time that Shawn Michaels hit Ric Flair with the Sweet Chin Music
and said, "I'm sorry, I love you"?
Dude.
Oh my gosh, that
heartbreaking.
If you didn't cry, if you didn't cry when he was crying and he said, "I'm sorry, I love you," obviously it was it didn't hold. Like it didn't like stand the test of time
because
Flair has unretired 7 times since then. He's 200 years old and he's still wrestling and smoking weed on my Facebook page when I scroll through. I don't know if you guys get that, but I am always getting it's like I think it's called the Ric Flair drip. I assume that's like, because I've seen him in videos, I assume it's a rap song. I assume that's what it is. And then he decided, like, hey, I really love smoking weed. I'm going to make a brand about this. And so while I'm scrolling through Facebook, I'm either seeing Ric Flair fighting or Ric Flair smoking weed. But apparently it's all I watch too on Facebook.
Yeah, because that's all you see.
Yeah, it's the algorithm. So I guess that's on me.
Mine is just like Chris Benoit memes. And then, like, anti-government memes right afterwards, like repeal the NFA, like, you know.
I don't actually, defund
the IRS. ATF will shoot your dog, stuff like that. I get a lot of that, and then a lot of, this guy had brain damage and killed his family.
Man.
Typical Facebook page for someone from Granite City.
Typical Granite City Facebook, man.
Yeah. So anyway, one of my favorites. I've got 2. One of you kind of spoiled one of them.
Oh no!
Whenever you did your funniest moments, and I coached you through submitting a man who shall remain unnamed.
Yep, we'll keep him unnamed.
But that was a good one.
But let's make sure we just note that he's relevant now.
He's extremely relevant, and he's extremely good. And I think that as the years go on, it will be very kind to how that, like, your submission over him will look great. And like,
I've got to find the match. I don't even know where.
He's probably going to be ADCC bound soon, and might be like.
I think you're right.
He's not going to get an invite, but he might win trials, and he might be on those mats. And you know what I'm going to do at our watch party? I'm going to sit there and be like, hey, you guys. One time, Josh McKinney choked that dude unconscious in front of his mom and dad, and then I just brutally verbally assaulted them all.
I'll tell you this. When Giancarlo Bodoni won ADCC, I was showing all the guys the YouTube video of him beating me up. You know.
Now we got a video of you beating a guy up who might win.
Yeah, who might. And so like I was like, oh yeah, guys, check this out. You guys know him? Watch him do that to me. And they were like, oh, wow.
Yeah. Well,
ooh.
You're so good. You got beat up by this guy?
Wow.
I think that the funny part about this is, like, that dude, like, he probably has a pretty cool story, too. Because, like, I remember he was training in, like, a garage or something with, like, just his dad as his coach. And he was pretty good. The thing that stands out to me about it.
And feels like you're starting to reveal who it is. I thought that was the whole point as we were trying to reveal.
I don't know.
Anyway.
Nobody's going to know who this guy is.
Okay.
Because it was so long ago. They probably don't even know he was training back then.
Okay.
Do you remember how he had tattoos and shit, though, as like a child?
Okay. I guess we're going deeper into it. Yes, I do remember that in the teen division, being like, oh my gosh, this is surprising. I was also in teen and adult that day, and if you look at the teens that I had in my division, they all looked like adults. Grown men. And I was like, are we sure that this, in my Nogi division, like, are we sure that this is...
Did they mix this up?
Yeah.
Dude, you did like 5 divisions that day, and you won every match.
I did.
You won every match. To me, like, whenever I think back to, like, my favorite tournament, like, I guess that this can lead into one of my favorite stories of the Josh and Justin days of competing just every other weekend and traveling.
The Attitude Era.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I was definitely the Flying Brian of that era for sure. I was definitely doing massive amounts of drugs and then just like headbutting people and pulling guns on Stone Cold on TV and saying fuck on live TV. And then they have to, like, they didn't bleep it. I watched that live. My dad was like, "Oh no, he said the F word," and I'm like, "Oh, dude, you say the F word all the time. Like, what's going?"
Yeah, and he's like, "Oh, Justin, cover your ears." Dad, I've heard you say that all the time. I thought that was my first name for a while.
I'm confused. This is that you just call me dickhead all the time. Like, what am I?
Oh
anyway,
my
no, my
gosh.
parents are great. I love my parents.
Just so you know, I'm not editing any of
They're
this.
gonna
This
watch
is
this.
all
and
staying.
They're gonna, you know what? They deserve it. They're gonna watch it and they're gonna be like, "Dude, he hates us," but I love you guys so much. And to anybody watching, I do love my mom and dad. They've been super supportive. They came over. I got my black belt. They're awesome.
At this point, if you can't pick up when we're being sarcastic with
exactly.
no voice change, but you're just going, what they're saying is just too bizarre to be true, or too bizarre to be something they actually think
No,
about.
my dad really does call me dickhead all the time. Like that's not a joke. No, that was true. It's just not like mean. It's not like an abusive way. But that one is true. But yeah, mostly we have like kind of this unique thing, I guess, because we've been friends so long that we can we do joke and we joke like way under the radar. And I feel like maybe this was a bad idea to do a podcast.
I think that this has been terrific so far.
People are gonna think that we're serious about all this stuff, and we are, but we aren't. You know.
I mean, people can think what they want. I can't control people's thoughts.
That's true.
You know,
Yeah,
I can't control people's opinions of me. I could, of course, not share this episode because it's a bit offensive, and you talk about murdering your family and Kid Rock and everything.
That's a TBD thing, the murdering of the family. I have to get massive amounts of brain damage. My best friend has to die.
You got to get on steroids.
Steroids, crippling painkiller addiction.
Yeah.
But it could happen. It could happen to
You're
the best of us. That dude was one of the best wrestlers to ever live. He killed his whole family. Got blacklisted too. They can't even show footage of him.
They do not show footage of him, man. Craziness. But anyway, back to this tournament. I was running across the mat in between divisions at that tournament, literally getting my hand raised and then walking to the other division. They were just making me fight over and over.
I remember training for that tournament. It was an OGC, right? It was an OGC.
It was an Extreme Grappling
Open.
Ego. Yep.
So it was in Indiana?
Yep.
Okay. So I remember training, dude, we competed so much that they all run.
I know.
But I remember the lead up to that tournament. You were working this guard pull where you put your foot in the hip, grab the lapel, and you'd swing them over your head and just land right and mount.
Uh-huh.
And I remember us drilling it, and I remember you hitting it live on everybody, including people much bigger than you. And I was like, dude, that's what you do. And you're like, oh, that's my game plan. This whole tournament, I'm just doing that. And you must have hit that every match, every gi match. You were just sending people through the roof. And then I'm videotaping your matches. Just yeah, man, that's it. Yeah, you got him. That's good. Yep. I like that.
Yep. Keep going. Keep going.
Yep. That's nice. And then your dad's just yelling. It was a good time.
You know, they literally took me out of the teen division in the gi because I beat my first kid so bad. And
I remember that.
They were and so it was they combined us all, and it was he was a blue belt, I was a blue belt, and then there were some other random color belts for the kids, lower level colors. And they're okay, you guys are all in the same division. Okay, great. Yeah, sweet. We're all in the same division. They're we're going to put the two highest belts together to kind of get a vibe for what this, if it was a bad idea to combine two blue belts, we should have just put them in our division, right? Yeah. And so I hit this kid with an overhead throw. I mount him, and then I arm bar him. And it literally that fast. And I walk up, and they have a gold medal. And they go, hey, we're going to give you this medal, but we're going to restart the division without you. And I was but I didn't even fight everybody. And they go, are you doing other divisions today? And I'm yeah, I'm in 4 other ones. And they're you can take this medal, and you're done for the day. And you're done here. And I'm okay, I guess.
Yeah, that was the most dominant tournament I've ever seen anybody do. And the fact that you were a child really, really, really put it over the top for me, because I remember the first adult you fought was a pretty big dude. Mm-hmm. And I was man.
As a pro MMA guy.
I'm this guy has no idea what's in store for him. And you just do the exact same thing to him. And I was yeah.
I beat him.
You submitted everybody that day, didn't you?
I did. And I beat that guy so bad. I walked from teen division over to that, and he verbalized, he goes, I'm supposed to fight this kid.
Yep.
And I beat the brakes off that guy.
Him.
I beat him so bad that my dad yelled at me after for dancing on his grave, as he put it. Do you remember that?
Look, so I remember. So I don't know if you remember this, but so you're that match is happening. I'm watching it. I'm getting ready to go on my mat. I look over at the mat, and I'm oh man, Josh is about to go. So you go out there, you smoke, like you're fighting while I'm waiting for my guy to come out. You're beating this guy to death. My guy comes out, I pull guard, I inverted triangle this kid in like 12 seconds. We stand up at the same time. I look at you, we do the finger guns, and then Watson was on the Ultimate Fighter, so we do the right at each other.
We
and
do.
Like, your dad is just so mad at us.
He is so mad at us, man. You know what? These guys were, the guy literally said to me, I'm supposed to fight this kid? Like, yeah, dude, you did. My coach is on the Ultimate Fighter. Check out these finger guns.
My
Bing,
guy
bang.
didn't do anything to me. He just got smoked in like 11 seconds, and I thought that was cool. I did it with no coach, so I was like, dude, that was awesome. I'm like, you guys got it. I'm like looking around, I'm like looking at this coach, I'm like, yeah, that was cool, right? You guys ever seen inverted triangle before? Yeah, Braulio Estima hit that on Andre Galvao, ADCC 2009. I watched it, and I've never practiced it before. Hitting on your guy in the gi. Your guy sucks. So that's why I did it, because I'm a jerk.
Yeah.
You did it because it was, funny. And that guy, you were slighted in some way.
I was slighted.
I was
slighted.
I'm just a mean person.
I would still fight that guy to the death today.
I've got to
if
say,
I got the chance.
You would kill him today. You'd murder that guy today.
He probably doesn't train.
That dude has probably been retired for 6 years.
It was 13 years ago.
He's probably been retired for like 6 years. He's probably a little fat.
He's an accountant,
you would
man.
just like rape choke him to death. Just like, yep, this is what I'm doing to you.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think that really I don't know. This might be petty.
We still actually haven't told the story that we started with about bringing up this tournament.
So like really, okay, so I'll tell it real quick. Driving to that tournament, you were cutting weight, I wasn't, and I was just eating. We were sitting next to each other in like a church van, and I was just eating Twizzlers the whole time, and I'd be like, bro,
we did go with a crew. Did we go with a crew with that?
Yeah, we had a crew.
Okay.
Like we had some like old school guys. Like I think Pat competed.
Pat was there.
Pat did a bunch of stuff. Yeah, we had a group.
Okay.
Went to that bad boy, and then all the judo kids. The
yes,
kids, they all went too. So like we were all just like jammed in this van.
Driving. Shout out Pat Schmidt and the Graves family.
Yeah. Old school
hit squad.
Yeah.
Anyway, you're eating candy. I'm starving to death.
You're dying. That's really the story. That's pretty much it. Yeah, I'm eating candy. You're dying. It was funny to me, and I'm your best friend at this point. And I'm just like, hey, bro, you want Twizzler? And you're just like looking at. You're like, I've never seen you look at me with more hatred. Another really good story is we went to. I think that this one was an OGC, but it was the first time that you and I stayed in a hotel together. You remember this story? And
we're by ourselves, right?
By ourselves.
We're free, and we're staying in like a suite, pretty much.
It's a nice place.
Yeah, it's got a kitchen. It's got 2 beds because we're not like sharing beds.
I want to ask you something. So like I can to this day I can picture what this room looks like in my brain. Can you do the same? Like
yes,
it's like
I can.
I was sleeping on the pull-out.
Yep.
I was sleeping in the bed. You were sleeping on the pull-out couch.
You were jumping on the bed at 3 a.m. and kicking the ceiling because somebody was walking around over us.
I was gonna get into that.
Okay, sorry.
Where like we should not have been unsupervised at the ages that we were in a very nice hotel.
Let's talk about what else we did in that hotel room. Do you remember what else we were doing?
No, I remember I listened to a lot of like the Metallica album.
Yeah, we did that. We were trying to listen to the Four Horsemen, so we ended up listening to some Aphrodite's Child and not just Metallica. We're like, what is this? And then we're like, this is pretty good, man.
Yeah, well, like my dad like loves that song.
Oh,
so,
yeah.
Like I had heard it a whole bunch. Like we were like jamming to that song. I forgot about that.
Yeah, that was good.
Dude, we gotta listen to that after the podcast wraps.
Yeah. So here is the thing that obviously you don't remember. You said, hey, you know what I heard? Like, what, Justin? This has got to be something great. And you're like, I heard that dairy-free coffee creamer, like the powdered coffee creamer, is flammable. And so you and I, with our whole kitchen, we were doing like fire bombs in the kitchen at 2 a.m. when we had to fight. We had to wake up at like 7 to go weigh in at this tournament.
Yeah, I remember this. Yeah, it's funny that you say that. I said, hey, do you know what I heard whenever I've been making fire bombs for years? And I was just like, let's make fire bombs, bro.
And we were below.
Dude, I do remember this very vividly now because I remember we turned on the stove and I had a little bit and you're like, it's not flammable. And
There's no way.
I'm like, I sprinkle it and it's like, oh, wow. And then that quickly turned into taking handfuls of it.
Dude.
Fastballing it, just Nolan Ryeing it across the kitchen into the thing, just a gigantic fireball.
It was one of those things that like once I saw it, I was like, okay, we got to keep doing this.
Yeah,
this is the best experience I've ever had.
We spent $100 on the smallest pizza in the world.
We did. We bought 2 a.m. pizza.
2 a.m. pizza delivered.
2 a.m.
pizza, mozzarella sticks, wings.
I guess we must have weighed in because I remember eating that.
Yeah, we did. We weighed in the day before because I remember the division was 155 and I weighed in at like 131. And the dude's
fully dressed.
The dude's like, "Do you want to take your pants off?" And I was like, weird question because I'm weighing in at 134 at a 155
30 pounds
division.
light, bro.
I'm like, we're good. Yeah. No, man, I forgot about the coffee creamer, man. Yeah, that was my bad.
You were on fire that next day, though. Speaking of being on fire at tournaments, I lost first round, I think.
Yeah, that was a really good tournament for me, which is weird because the whole night we're up jamming Aphrodite's Child and Metallica, and I'm jumping on the bed because the dude upstairs is like cutting up a body in the bathtub with a sawzall or something. It's just like the loudest noise I've ever heard in my life, so I couldn't sleep anyway. And I'm like, bro, have you heard the new Metallica album? And you're like, no. And at this point,
I'm like, no, let's listen to it forever.
It was like a year old at this. No, it wasn't because I was a white belt. I think it came out in August or something. I don't remember. But anyway, I can't believe I forgot about the coffee creamer, bro.
Yeah, dude, I remember that vividly.
Probably because I did it all the time. Like I went home and was doing that too.
I think that was my first adult blue belt tournament.
It was, yeah. Because you fought a dude who was on the Ultimate Fighter and lost, and I've never let you forget it. And I don't even remember that dude's name.
I don't even know who it was.
No, I couldn't.
But for us in 2009, when there'd only been 3 seasons of the Ultimate, 4 seasons, it was like, dude, you're fighting a UFC legend.
Yeah, you're fighting.
And you're and you're 10. You know, you're 15 and you're burning a hotel down in the middle of the night, you know?
That was a really weird tournament because, like, it was one of those things where, like, I felt terrible in the lead up to that tournament. I felt bad. So the night, we stayed up all night, and I did all that crazy stuff to make an excuse for myself when I went out there and lost. Mm-hmm. And, dude, I went out there and I
did the old John Jones.
I did. I was John Jonesing for John Jones.
Except instead of cocaine, it was coffee creamer.
He wasn't even wrestling in college when I was doing this.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, another mysterious white powder.
Yeah. It was.
Can you light cocaine on fire?
I've never. To be honest, I don't think I've ever really been around cocaine. You know, like
we should try it. We shouldn't try cocaine. Well,
just maybe. Being around it, try to light it on fire.
Light it on fire, and then maybe like the fumes will like do something.
I don't think that's a good idea. I don't think that's a good call. But we should talk about it off the podcast for sure.
All right, yeah, I know a guy. You got $100? So anyway, I go into the tournament and like. The first guy, I smoked this guy. It was like the only guy my size. It was like just another kid. And I remember I got his back and he was like trying to shake me off and I got him in a triangle hanging off of him backwards. You remember that?
I remember. I remember you submitting like a lot of people that day.
So I
remember, and I mean you only did 2 submissions, so it was one of those 2. I'm sure.
I tapped to that guy. Do you remember what the other submission was?
Did you dart somebody?
No, I broke a dude's arm.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, I broke a guy's arm. So, like, I'm going with this guy, and he's, like, a full-grown
This
adult.
Is the same tournament you get elbowed in, right?
Yes.
Okay.
The elbow comes after
Yeah, that's out. Okay. That was the semis.
So he has my belt, and Kyle's telling me to break the grip and pull the arm across. And I'm, like, looking. I'm like, bro, he's holding my belt. Like, you know, like, I don't know how.
I do remember this, yeah.
So, like, Kyle's, like, right here. He's, like, 3 feet away from me. And I'm like, he's holding my belt. And I'm, like, just telling him, because, like, hey, give me another option, because I can't break this dude's grip because he has my belt. And, like, back then, belts were like soft. Like a lot of people probably are used to the modern like grapple weave belts. These weren't that. They were just like karate belts that we were using basically.
Literally, a lot of times it was not uncommon to buy a karate belt and then put a patch on it to have a tab.
Sew a tab on.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, this wasn't like that, but it was really junky white belt. Before Fuji started making really quality stuff, they were like the only people that we could buy gis from. It was like them or Atama. Anyway, dude's holding my belt, and he's just got like a gorilla grip on this thing. And I'm like looking at Kyle, and I'm like, bro, I can't break his grip. And I think that he thought I was talking to the ref, so he lets go. And I pull his hand off, and I'm like, okay, is it time to be a scumbag, or do I like let the guy be like, no, bro, I wasn't talking to the ref?
Nah, his problem.
I pull it across, swing my hips, the hardest armbar ever. And back then, cups were legal. Cups were completely
and not only legal, but in a lot of tournaments, they would say that you were required to wear a cup.
Yeah, in Nogi, you needed to wear a cup because back then, like MMA and Jiu-Jitsu were super intertwined for some reason.
We acted like they were the same thing.
We did.
Until teenagers were submitting UFC fighters, and you're like, wait, in Jiu-Jitsu rounds, you're like, wait a second, that doesn't make sense.
Like, you know, not to like brag, but like I submitted some of them in like light MMA striking rounds where they'd like take me down into a triangle and be like, yeah, dude, you suck at this. Like you should have stayed on the feet and just punched me in the face more. because like you're not good at this. And they were like you said, they were like grapplers. They were guys who were like submitting people in the UFC, and we're just like dogging them out. So anyway, I swing my hips, cup goes right on this dude's elbow, and it just goes crack. And it was like a loud, and like I felt it reverberate through the cup into my nether regions. That's how loud.
What a great feeling that must have been.
It was a feeling of victory.
Had to be that had to be a top 10 experience in your life.
I kind of became a kink, so then I had to start getting my fix on the streets.
Oh, so that's why you wear a cup all the time.
Yeah, no, I don't wear a cup, and I really wish I did, because dude, like the last few like months, I've just been like getting nut shots like crazy. I don't know what's going on with it.
Really?
But we need to chill out. We need to chill these dudes out because they're just kicking me in the balls constantly. So I break this guy's arm.
Okay.
Back to the point. All right. I break this guy's arm, and he's like, "Oh man, you broke my arm. You got to win the division now." And I'm like, "All right, dude, I got you."
I'm like, dude, you suck. Don't tell me what to do. You lost.
Yeah.
You know, don't come and tell me how to live my life.
Well, the funny part is like, so for my next match, I get this kid who's just like built like a brick shit house, and he's like probably pretty young too. He's probably like what, like 19.
Probably
maybe?
19. Yep.
He's just huge though. He's like he like cut from like 180 to make 155. He's gigantic. His traps are like this tall.
And for the perspective, you're weighing in at 130.
Yes,
fully dressed,
and
with eating candy on the way to the
soft
tournament.
130. Like realistically, like if we're talking like if I was like muscular and fit, I was probably like 110 pounds. Like I was like 20 pounds of just like fat. I was just like chubby, like I didn't have a six pack at 134 pounds. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
Still don't
because
have a
Josh
six-pack.
McKinney was a specimen at that time.
Yes.
You know?
Chubby Asian Josh.
Yeah.
It was I don't know, dude, you had pretty big biceps. I was always impressed by that.
That was the only thing that was
You got really good genetics from your dad,
yeah.
for sure. So I go against this guy. So what's weird about this match is I don't remember a lot of it. I just remember kind of like the highlights of it because it was a super boring match. I pull guard, and I can't remember. I got an advantage somehow, but I think I put him in a triangle at one point.
I want to say it was guillotine. I want to say you threatened a guillotine.
I don't remember what it was. Looking back, it was probably like loop choke, and I guillotined him off of it or something. Who knows what it was? I can't remember a lot of it. But he pops out of whatever it is, triangle, guillotine, and the dude full on just goes boom right on my face, and I was like, whoa, this dude just elbowed me, and it like I don't know, I'm pretty chill. I don't get mad like in matches, and I was like, whoa, dude, like the guy, and then he did it again, and Kyle explodes from the corner. And he's like, no, you know, like that's like your guy's elbowing my guy. Like he's like yelling at this guy's coach. And this guy's like posturing to Kyle. And I'm like, bro, that's a bad idea. Like you don't want to do. Like he's gonna kill you on the side of the mat. And like Watson's like the nicest guy. And like, but like,
and this isn't freaking old man Watson.
No, this is
like, peak. I mean, to us young, he's always been old man.
Yeah.
But
he was like what, like 25, 26.
I think he was 29 at that time.
Was he?
Mm-hmm.
Oh. Yeah, I remember whenever he turned 30. He wasn't 30 yet because I remember he turned 30 and I was like dogging him about it for a long time. He was probably like 28, 20.
But yeah, he would absolutely kill a human being.
Dude, he was fit.
Yeah.
He was a monster. And also like striking all the time, like killing dudes in the gym and striking rounds.
This guy is a trained UFC fighter.
Trained.
And you're trying to fight him because your student's an idiot and threw an elbow.
Crazy good striking at the time. Really slept on Kyle Watson. As far as MMA fighting skill goes, I feel like does not get enough credit. Dude was an animal. In the gym, especially, I saw Kyle beat guys who you wouldn't believe it.
Were very good.
You wouldn't believe it if I told you. So anyway, Kyle's like gonna fight his coach, and like I have the guy in a loop choke afterwards. So like this happens, he elbows me. They tell him, they basically like don't tell him anything. There's like, hey, quit being rough. They don't stop the match. I get him in a loop choke, and my wrist goes right on the bridge of his nose. And I was like, payback. And I just wrenched it. And like whenever I did it, I felt one, his head twist, and two, I felt his nose just shatter on my wrist. So he just starts pouring blood.
Oh, I remember.
He's pouring blood all over my chest. So they stop the match.
And I'm just sitting there recording Kyle fighting the coach, recording this dude bleeding everywhere. It's a bloodbath.
That's the funny thing is like Kyle's still yelling. Like Kyle stopped coaching me. He's still like, I can't believe you raising scumbags over there. You got scumbag guys on your team. And,
well, the coach was also saying he didn't elbow you, even though he blatantly reared back 2 times. The first one connected, and then he did it again.
The first one connected hard. The second one connected way harder, and it was like right on my temple. And I was like, oh, bro, chill out. Yeah, making it sound like Kyle was just attacking this guy, but he wasn't. Like, the guy deserved it. Like, honestly, I have a reputation for kind of going ballistic whenever I'm cornering people and talking trash to the coaches. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, like, I feel like if it would have been me in that, like, if someone elbows one of my guys, like, we are fighting. Of course. I'm physically assaulting you. Take note, there's, like, an AGF coming up soon. Probably by the time this podcast comes out, it'll be, like, that weekend. If you see me coaching, don't hurt my guys, because I will kill you. I have a gun. And we aren't fighting, bro. I'm shooting you.
I think we're going to cut out, just in case, the AGF shooting thing. Just in case it happens, it becomes premeditated.
Oh, that's true.
When you do that.
I'm not going to, I'll just fight him. So, like, I'll just catch the assault charge. It's fine.
Yeah, that's okay. Premeditated assault, no one worries about.
I don't know. So I break the dude's nose. He bleeds all over me, and they're like, "Hey, you gotta go to the cleanup health table." So I go, and it's like this poor woman who she clearly doesn't know anything about jiu-jitsu. She's just like an EMT, and this is supposed to be her day off, and she just opens up an alcohol.
Somebody
swab.
sent her a text on Saturday morning and said, "You want to make $75?"
Yeah, probably not 75 back then, dude. It was probably like 45.
Yeah.
It was a really small, we were grappling a barn or something, and this is a concrete floor with paint on it. Purple mats that are
they are literally wrestling mats.
You don't see this anymore, but back then, tournaments were so small. These organizations didn't have their own mats. They would use the high school's wrestling mats that they would use for wrestling meets, and that's what this was. You don't see that now. Now everybody has their own branded mats that they bring up. But back then, I could talk about 2008 to 2011 era jiu-jitsu tournaments, and they're so different. Dude, these guys today are so spoiled. They show up and they're run good. There's not a dude walking around with a dog letting it on the mats and stuff. It's wild. They're not just in a barn in Nashville somewhere with a dirt floor.
With a circus literally outside of the barn?
Yes.
A live circus going on?
There's a tiger outside.
Mm-hmm.
You could go see a tiger and then go fight a jiu-jitsu match. It's insane. It was a wild time. Anyway, so she opens up this alcohol swab and she's wiping my chest with it, but she didn't expand it.
She's got a little square.
Just a little thing, and it's just moving the blood around. I was like, "Hey," can I do that? And she was like, "Yeah, sure." And she hands it to me. I was like, "How did you get an EMT license?"
Yeah,
so
she didn't have one.
We go,
she's
got the jacket.
Yeah,
medical. Yeah, they're go to the medical table, and I go over there. It's just some poor lady, just looks defeated, and I'm covered in blood. I look like I murdered someone. Mm-hmm. Not at the AGF that was coaching against me, just a random guy. So I go back and the kid's he has stuff stuffed in his nose, and this was before now I think that they have a rule in most tournaments if you start bleeding again, it's over. You can't compete anymore. Yeah, they didn't give a shit about that. So immediately this kid's nose starts bleeding on me again. I'm wearing a white gi too, so I'm just covered in this guy's blood. And we go the full rest of the match. Same thing. I just kept trying to loop choke him, and he kept ducking his nose, and I just get on his broken nose and crank it because he elbowed me. So tough luck. So at the end of the match, I stand up and just out of habit, I shake this dude's hand. And Watson's just
don't shake his hand. I remember him saying that.
He's yelling at me like he's my dad. And I'm oh, dude, because he's
You look at the guy and you're like, I'm sorry for shaking your hand.
I looked at him and I'm like, I think I said something he's right. Or something right in his face. He's right here. I'm like, yeah, he's right. And that was it. That was a wild tournament. Really good tournament for me. Really bad tournament for that guy. Really bad tournament for the Josh McKinney. Really good tournament for experimenting with homemade explosives. Yeah,
great. That was a good experience. And on that note, because I think people are always curious when you go okay, well, why were you guys at that time? Why were you able to do so well? Well, a big reason is because we would skip high school.
Yeah, well, I hated school.
I did too.
Why am I going to do school if I could do this? And at the time, we were talking about our whole goal is whenever we get old enough. Because we're kids. Mm-hmm. It's what do you want to do when you grow up? We're going to teach jiu-jitsu, and we're going to do it together. Mm-hmm. We're going to open up a gym together. I'm going to teach there. You're going to teach there. It's going to be our thing. We're not going to have regular jobs. So, I'm man, fuck school. I'm not going to school ever. So I just stopped. I really, honestly, that was my junior year of high school. I don't know how many days are in a school year, because it's only 6 months or whatever, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't know how many days that equates out to because I'm bad at math.
Because you didn't go to school.
I didn't go to school, yes, exactly. And also I think I'm just dumb, but really dumb with numbers. So I missed 100-something days my junior year, and I had a truancy officer catch me at school. One of the days I was there, and he's like, "Hey man, your truancy is like off the charts. He's like, I'll make a deal with you. This was whenever like school was still cool. And like I knew this guy. Like I'd gone to a trivia night one night, and this dude was there. He was a cop. You know, truancy officers are usually cops. And he was there like drinking, and he like got real drunk. And like we were like buddy for like a little bit, and then he left the thing. So like whenever he comes up to me, like we instantly recognized each other. I'm like, that's the guy that was at that trivia night I was at. Like,
hey man, don't get on me about school. You were drunk.
You were drunk, bro.
Yeah.
You're a cop. You drove home that night. So he comes up to me. He's like, hey, and like I can tell he's like, oh, I know this guy. I was at that trivia night with him, and he's like, hey man, I'm gonna make a deal with you. If you come to school 4 days a week, you can skip Friday every time, and I won't make a big deal out of it. So I was like, deal, because like that's what a Granite City high school truancy officer does. They just make deals with the kids. So I was like, deal. And then as we were like getting ready to like, you know, he was like, okay, you know, blah 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 blah, and I'm like, hey, can I do it 3 days a week? Can I just come 3 days and then, you know, skip the last 2 or skip whatever 2 days I want? And he was like, I don't care what you do as long as you come to school sometimes. And I was like, done. So like he had also come to my house, I think, and like had talked to my parents, and they're like, hey, like your kid never goes to school. And they're like, okay, what do you want us to do about it? You want us to take him to school? Like we work, bro. So and my parents were like really like, they were just kind of like, yeah, man, like, is this what you want to do? Do you want to do jiu-jitsu? And I was like, yeah. Like, they were like, okay, well, like, you know, just do enough school to graduate. That way you have a diploma. That way if you have to get a job, you can, like, you know, do that. They're like, but we don't care. Like, do jiu-jitsu. Get as good as you can, as fast as you can. So we would just skip school all the time. Like, you went to, like, private school. So you just didn't show up to that. I just wouldn't go to high school. And then we're just training the whole time. We're training, like, 3 times a day. We're, like, training in the morning. And then sometimes we would train with, like, Kyle would come in because he was like living in the dorms. We'd train with him, and then you and I would go do the night class, and in between we'd like get lunch. So we're training all the time, and it's very focused training. It's like, what do you want to get good at? Are we doing daily Hiva? Are we doing this? And we would just drill that stuff constantly. We got really good really fast. You know, the guys who are doing the MMA class, they're like smoking weed and like going out and partying at night, and we're not doing that. So that's why we were able to submit them.
And it's like, you know, really, we were just getting mat time. You know, we were super focused because when you compete, you just have to be. You just have to be going, okay, I have to turn over every stone because I want to win. You know, you get your next belt. Oh, I'm losing at this belt. I want to win. And
back then, like getting your next belt, like whenever we got blue belts, like you got your blue belt 6 months before me, like that was rare, dude. Like having a blue belt in the gym, like we had one when we started. Well, it was a white belt. It was Derek McGuire, and then he got his blue belt. And like it was so rare that his like name on our online forum for Watson Martial Arts at the time was just Faja Azul. Because, like, no, everybody's like, yeah, dude, I've never seen a blue belt before. It was like being a black belt back then. So, like, your whole goal is, like, we're going to get the blue belt. And me and you worked really hard to get the blue belt. And we smoked people at blue belt, too.
And I just think that it showed that, like, literally just training a second time a day for us at that time, it made that much of a difference. And then, of course, we were watching probably more instructionals than people were doing because we had that free time. But that was kind of where I wanted to go.
The instructionals back then sucked, though. You remember how bad they were?
A lot of them were pretty bad. And so, like, I think we started to, I think I had a Marcelo one that I really liked.
Me too.
I think we had like a Ryan Hall one that we would go
Ryan
to.
Hall stuff, like, shout out to Ryan Hall. The dude basically, like, molded my game from white to purple belt. Because
in that time, too.
He was the only guy who had, like, a philosophical approach to jiu-jitsu that was, like, you know, you could get to. Like,
and that was in English.
Like, Danaher was doing his thing in New York, but, like, nobody knew who he was yet. I mean, like, we knew who he was, but, like, he was, like, a legend. He was, like, real mythical. It's really weird living right now where he's, like, the biggest thing in jiu-jitsu and people talk about him all the time because you just hear, like, whispers of John Danaher. They'd be like... Oh.
And you'd be like, no, those aren't true.
They'd be like, oh, this guy submits everybody at Hinzo's and he's got one leg.
Yeah.
And you'd be like, oh, he's got one leg. And then you see him and he's got, like, this or whatever. And you're just like, yeah, that guy's submitting everybody? Like, I don't know about that, bro. And then you have like GSP being like, he's the best guy. And then when Kyle went on the Ultimate Fighter and trained with him, and he like told me he was like, you know, he's like one of the best guys he's ever rolled with, and like he brought back that Danaher stuff that I still use to this day. But back then, like Ryan Hall was the only one who had like principles. Like I like to learn in concepts, and he always had like the open elbow concept, cool stuff about the triangle, and like honestly, a lot of that stuff like he doesn't like it now. Like his new instructional stuff like replaced that for him, but like I just use all that old stuff still. It's all really good.
Yeah, that's like all it is he was just giving you a little peek into how he thinks at that time. You know what I mean? And then you can go, okay, well, if a guy this good thinks this way, if I think this way, it's going to have a huge effect on me. Do your takedowns suck for jiu-jitsu? Most likely you said yes. I can say most likely you said yes because even at adult black belt, when I wrestle with people, it is surprising to me often how bad they are on the feet. And it's not because I'm super exceptional on the feet by any means. It is because I had a coach that actually broke down and actually simplified what is happening when you are standing, what you should be going for, how you should even be standing. And it seems like in the jiu-jitsu space, because so few people have wrestled, because so few people understand stand-up, so few people are judo black belts, so few people just don't know how to combine judo and wrestling. And so then we have this thing where most people have to learn wrestling in jiu-jitsu almost through osmosis or by studying other sports. They have to learn takedowns by not looking at the jiu-jitsu space. Well, guess what? For you guys right now, we're doing 50% off of Simplifying Takedowns for BJJ. Simplifying Takedowns is actually made by my coach, Kyle Watson. And what he does is he starts at the beginning and he breaks down how to get better at wrestling, how to get better at finishing takedowns in the gi, without the gi, and just how to get better at winning that takedown battle. Kyle has over an 80% takedown rate in his jiu-jitsu, competitive jiu-jitsu matches, which is unbelievable, meaning 4 out of every 5 people that walk out onto the mat to fight Kyle Watson get taken down before they even have time to pull guard. And that is mind-blowing. That is an unheard of statistic in competitive jiu-jitsu. You guys need this instructional. Not only that, not only is this instructional right now 50% off with promo code NEWSTUDIO, but so is every instructional that we have at simplifyingjujitsu.com. Remember, we're celebrating Simplifying Jiu-Jitsu 2.0 finally being built. And if you guys want to celebrate that with us, get to simplifyingjujitsu.com, use promo code NEWSTUDIO, get 50% off of STDs for BJJ, that is Simplifying Takedowns for BJJ, and 50% off of any other instructional, any other course that we sell at simplifyingjujitsu.com. Let's get back to the episode. So I thought, just kind of like digging into what that training was back then, what drilling was, because that's such a interchangeable word in jiu-jitsu, and so a lot of people use drilling for a lot of different terms. And so kind of for us, just from your perspective, when we were getting training with Kyle, we're just doing a lot of training on our own, because this was our first experience with getting to train on our own. We're both kind of blue belts at the time. What was that training looking like?
I mean, man, honestly, I think it was just kind of like the prototype for designated winner. Like, if you really look at it, like me and you were doing rounds. If we had a third guy, it would just be basically top, bottom out, and you knew that it was like, the top guy's going to pass, do this stuff. Like, we had like a roadmap of how to do it. So I think that helped a whole lot. And then another thing that we were doing is we were just doing like marathon rounds, man. Like, we would just go and we would do rounds after class, especially. Like, at the hit squad, like, we had this gigantic mat. And there'd be another class, but the mat was so big that they would be way down there and they'd never come down to your end. So we'd have like 10 or 15 guys stay after the class would wrap, and we would just do rounds until whenever. And like at the time, like my parents were picking me up from the gym, and they'd just be so mad. They'd be like, what time's class? Or it would be like 8 o'clock. And then it'd be like 10:30. And I'm like walking out of the gym, like, dude, we've been out here this whole time. Like, they would eventually just like come in and like watch or whatever. But they'd be like, we've been out here forever. What are you doing in there? I'm like, well, come check it out.
Getting rounds, dude.
Trying to get good at jiu-jitsu because I suck right now.
So at this point in jiu-jitsu, we are obviously training a ton. It's a really fun crew. But kind of as that transition of the hit squad where Kyle goes off on his own, he's going to go do his own thing. During that time, what is jiu-jitsu looking like to you? What's kind of the situation?
It was kind of weird for me. So like whenever Kyle left or was leaving, like we knew that he was leaving, and it was basically like, hey, here are the guys who are staying, here are the guys who are going. So there was like kind of like a split, not like a nefarious one. There was like no like hard feelings or anything. Like a couple of those guys I didn't like or whatever, and I was glad that they didn't come with us. But it was just kind of like a split. Like you had some guys who were going to stay and train, and then you had pretty much all of Kyle's core guys, the guys who came up with Kyle, except for one guy who shall remain nameless, stayed behind. We all went with Kyle. Some guys who had came in afterwards and stuff, they kind of stayed there, and that's a story we won't get into. But we'll talk about it off air because it is funny. I was thinking about it the other day. I was talking to Tim Nolan and I were talking about it at lunch, and I was like, dude, that's a pretty funny story. And then I can't tell it on the podcast because we'll like get litigated somehow.
Well, I can't wait to hear it.
So yeah. Anyway, so Watson moves to St. Louis. I'm like white trash kid. I don't even know if I had a driver's license at the time. So like I'm not able to drive to St. Louis. So your dad is picking me up and taking me. And then Tim Nolan, guy I just mentioned before, great dude. He would also drive all the way from like South County to my house and drive all the way back to Watson's. And then we would train there. And like class at Watson's was late. We'd like get done at like 9 o'clock, and then he'd drive me all the way back home. And then we'd just like sit out there and like talk about jiu-jitsu. And he'd like get home at like probably midnight. And the dude had like a full-time job working as a cop. So like I had like these great dudes in my life who would help me out. Like basically like if you look at jiu-jitsu for me, it's like the story of like the way the mentors went. So like basically like my first mentor was Kyle. Kyle leaves. You and your dad become my mentors, right? Your dad never let me quit jiu-jitsu. And during this period, like where I'm going next is getting to Watson's was hard. I would still go every once in a while, but eventually I just kind of like quit going to Watson's. And then I kind of like quit training jiu-jitsu for like, I can't remember the exact timeline. I want to say it was like a year and a half, but it was probably closer to like two and a half. But I never like stopped training completely because your dad wouldn't let me. Like Steve would be like, hey man, like we're rolling in the garage today. You want to come roll? And then it was just like me, you, sometimes Huff would be there, sometimes Sean Thomas. We had a pretty good group of guys that would go in there and train. And it was tough training. I'm just getting my ass beaten the whole time because I'm out of shape. I'm like, man, and like my timing's gone and I'm not training consistently enough to be good at jiu-jitsu. And I'm just like losing. And towards the end of that 2-year period or whatever, like 2.5 year, probably almost 3. I don't know how long it was. It's weird. I blocked that time period out of my life.
I don't think I could tell you how long that was either. But I do remember. I mean, I remember that there was that period.
Yeah. So I'm not training a lot, and you guys are on the verge of opening up Head Nod HQ, at the time unnamed gym.
Yeah.
So you guys are telling me this, and I'm like, yeah, man, like you guys do that, I'll start training. And like at the time, like obviously, like I'm like working a job and all this stuff. So I'm like, I'll find time, I'll do that, I'll get in there and I'll train. And one day I come in to train in the garage, and it's just me and your dad. Me and your dad have been doing rounds on Mondays for years, barring like either of us being injured or like if we have something going on Monday. We've been doing rounds on Monday for like, I don't know how long, like dude, like 7 years, probably 8 years. Every Monday we'd just get together and we would do rounds. So it's one of those days, and Steve's just absolutely killing me on this Monday, and he beats me to death. And like I was really like at this point in my life where I was like, man, I'm putting energy into this and I'm not getting better because I can't train enough. I can't make it over to Watson's to get good at jiu-jitsu. I'm trying my best to get good on my own, but the guys I'm training with, they're so good. It's you and your dad, and then Huff is, I think at the time, a purple belt, and they're just, I'm getting smashed by these guys.
And you go from, and that's why I really wanted to highlight that beginning. You go from being one of the better competitors in the Midwest, definitely one of the best competitors in St. Louis area, and just as a kid, and then all of a sudden,
you suck.
You suck. It's not we kind of had what I would consider the teenage training method, which is the teenage training method is very similar to the steroid training method. Because you're a teenager and you are on natural steroids, your body is
pumped full of testosterone.
It is pumped full of testosterone. You're recovering amazing. And so you can do two things. One, you can build a game based on having an insane cardio and being able to throw up so much offense. And two, you can train 2 or 3 times a day
and not feel it. Like I remember,
never being sore.
I remember like the first, I wasn't sore after my first 2 classes at the hit squad, and they were hard cardio. Like they would try to kill us with cardio, throwing medicine balls and stuff. And I was sore the first 2 days, and then because we trained like 4 days a week, 5 days a week or whatever. Jiu-jitsu too at night. So I did those classes, and like by like the 3rd day, I wasn't sore anymore. And I should have been dead because I never played any sports, man. Like I never did anything athletic. And I just jumped into like the super athletic like MMA training where I'm like climbing stairs on my hands and climbing ropes and like ringing bells at the top and stuff. And I was like, man, like maybe I am an athlete. And then just stopped getting sore, stopped all that stuff, which I'm not an athlete, by the way. I'm super unathletic. It's the funniest thing in the world because like we have a lot of athletic guys, and I'm just like, all right, I'm just going to get strong and hold these guys down. That's the only thing I can do. So I think that going from being like you said, like honestly, like you and I, not to brag, we're probably the 2 best blue belts in the Midwest. Like we had to have been. Like who was better than us?
I mean, there were definitely. I'm sure there were people we could have grabbed. I'm sure there were people with different weight classes.
Yeah,
but in our
pound for pound
yeah,
in our divisions,
we were during those few years. We really were.
There weren't a time that we went out and didn't get gold or silver at these tournaments, and like we were competing a lot. I have a box full of medals that I haven't looked at.
I have a huge box full of medals.
So then, obviously, I have to stop training. I stop competing clearly, and then your dad is beating me up every Monday. And there was one day I was sitting there and I was like, I think I'm going to quit. This is probably the last time I'm going to train. And I'm sitting there and I'm putting my shoes on. And Steve has done this several times in the past before this moment. There was several times where he was like, hey, man, like you should really keep training. But I think he could tell that I was just done. And I was just sitting there like I was just tired. I still had my gi top on. I had to go like ride my motorcycle home. I'm like, just like, oh, man, I'm beat up and sore. I'm going to have to like work this like motorcycle around. It's going to suck. And he goes, hey, Kitch. And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, don't quit. And I like looked at him. I'm like, what? I'm like, are you reading my mind right now, old man? And he's like, don't quit. You're too good to give up on this. Just stick with it. It'll get better. And I was like, whoa, that's deep. And he had told me it several times. It just never really hit the same way because I was always like on the fence about quitting. But like this day, I was like, I'm done. I'm done.
You were off the fence.
I'm like, I'm quitting. Like I'm gonna ease it. I'm gonna ease out of it easily. I'm gonna just like let you guys keep training. I'm gonna show up less and less and less, and then I'm gonna be gone like every other blue belt before me. Mm-hmm. So he told me that, and I was like, you know what, man? Like it wasn't like one of those like epiphanies in the moment where I was like, you're right. And it wasn't like a movie. I was like, yeah, you're right. I'm pretty good at it. We'll see what happens, kind of thing. I leave and I'm like riding my motorcycle home. Like I didn't go straight home. I like went and rode around for a while. And I was like thinking about it the whole time. And like I got home, I went to sleep. Like I woke up, I was still thinking about it. And I was like, he's right. I'm like, I'm just going to keep doing it. I'm like, who cares if I can only train 1 time a week? It won't always be like that. And eventually, they'll get the gym open. And I'll be able to go train and I'll get good again. Mm-hmm. So 2015, you guys open Head Nod HQ. And I'm a blue belt who is way out of shape, way bad at jiu-jitsu. I'm not good at jiu-jitsu anymore. Everything that I did that was good is either obsolete or these guys are hip to it. It's like I was like an early like 50-50 guy and like early Berimbolo guy. And like they're like, yeah, that's just standard now.
Yeah, everybody knows that stuff.
Everybody knows that. Like I'm like Berimboloing on guys like at blue belt. I'm like, oh, dude, I'm taking their back off of this. I'm like going to mount. And I'm like, this is the good stuff. People like Berimbolo wasn't even like a thing. Like, we like learned about Berimbolo from John Thomas. We're like ahead of the game. We're like Berimbolo isn't named Berimbolo.
Yeah, that could also be a reason that we had so much success is we were doing like a lot of the stuff that high-level black belts were doing that they didn't have names yet because John had names for them. And he would break them down and he would say, this is what we're doing.
I remember spending a day with John Thomas going over De La Hiva. And like I had a pretty good De La Hiva guard. Nowadays, it's not very good. But back then, it was really good. It was like my main weapon. I go to De La Hiva, triangle, sweep, get on top, and then I would already be passed because my guard passing was terrible. I was strictly a guard player. So
we both were.
Yes. So I remember going over stuff with him that day. It was just me, you, and him, and we trained for like an hour and a half. And like in that hour and a half, I learned more about De La Hiva and how it worked than any other time in my life. And I'd been like researching De La Hiva, like watching instructionals from the man himself, Ricardo De La Hiva.
Yeah.
I'm like, so I know what this position is, and he tweaked it and changed it. And he's like, instead of this grip, get this cross grip here, and then instead of grabbing the pants, or instead of grabbing the ankle, grab the pants and twist it down. Remember that being like a big thing, like getting a grip on the pants and twisting it down around his ankle. I was like, whoa, dude, that's as tight as grabbing the ankle, but he can't get away, can't break the grip, they can't kick out. And I was like, oh man, that changed my life. So going from a guy who had like this really good game to like now my game is just dog shit. Now I'm going in here. And we had like some tough dudes come in the first day. We had Robert was a blue belt. Or no, he was a white belt.
He was a white belt when he first started. I promoted him to blue belt in like 3 weeks. He had trained for 8 years and no one had ever promoted him, We
had guys come in and they were like really good at jiu-jitsu. And like they had been training too. Like they were white belts who had been training and they absolutely smashed me. And I had this like really weird thing where I was like, dude, I'm a blue belt. And not only am I a blue belt, I once was a really good blue belt. Like I said, that's it. For the time period, I think we were probably purple belts. Certainly, like the skill level of what a purple belt is now, we were that then, for sure. Back then, those purple belts sucked. Like I submit purple belts all the time. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I was submitting blue belts as a white belt all the time. Like any blue belt that would come in, we just beat up because we were better than them.
It really was, especially in the Midwest. I'm sure that jiu-jitsu in other areas was further.
SoCal, we would have sucked. But in the Midwest and in the tournaments we were doing, you know, you had, I mean, how many black belts were in the Midwest whenever we started? Like, dude, a handful. Like,
there were so few, man.
I think it's 5.
In St. Louis, there was 1.
Yeah, I think it's 5 as far as like the whole Midwest.
Probably when we started. That probably sounds right.
Like Minnesota all the way to Ohio. Like there's like 5 dudes who are black belts.
At that time.
Like, it's nuts. You know?
Now there's 8 black belts in our gym, 7 black belts in our gym, something like that.
I don't know. There's a lot.
There's a bunch.
There's a bunch. And there's one in class like every night. There's at least one in class every night. At least. Not including yourself who teaches most of the classes, but like there's at least one. The instructor now is always a black belt, right?
Pretty much, yeah.
So like,
you know,
there's always one black belt. But even students,
unless he's somebody that can beat us up, you know.
Well, you come like the only class that would be that like there wouldn't be is like Thursday night, but like you and Huff both come to that. I go to Huff's class on Tuesday, so there's always a black belt in there.
There really is. It's a tough crew.
It's wild.
Even the beginners class now, where we have it separate. There's a black belt teaching both. There's usually some on the mats. Just definitely a huge contrast. But for you coming into Head Nod, it had to feel like. There had to be some level of discouragement or frustration or something because you're losing to guys that literally 5 years before, if that guy had come in,
would kill him. Yeah.
You would have killed him. And so, what is your training method is going to have to change. Everything is going to have to change for you if you're going to continue with this. What are kind of your thoughts?
My main thing that I wanted to like do whenever I started training was like I'm going to kill any little bit of ego I had because I was kind of a jerk before, right? Like whenever you're good at jiu-jitsu, it's really easy to let that ego take over and you can kind of become kind of a prick.
It's super easy to do.
I don't think I was...
Especially for you. I mean... No.
Dude, for real, like no joke, like I was like, I had kind of like an ego. And like it wasn't like, I don't think it was as malicious as it was looking back on it, but like I was definitely kind of a jerk to people. And they didn't really deserve it. But I was also like always nice and helpful too. But like, I'm kind of the same way now. Maybe nothing changed. Maybe nothing really changed, but I would be like actually mean to people. Now I'm more like jokingly mean to people, but I would be like actually mean to people back then. And I was like, I'm going to kill all that shit because these guys are going to beat me up. After the first class and I got submitted like 3 times by white belts, I was like, okay, yeah, we're going to have to like rearrange our thought process. So what I did was instead of thinking, okay, we're the best, I thought, you're a white belt. Just act like you're starting over. You have tools that you can call on to get good at this again. Do that. Don't just come into it and be like, hey, I'm good at jiu-jitsu already. I'm not going to learn. I'm going to keep doing the same things I've been doing for the last, 3.5 years or whatever, and they're going to work on these guys. Because it didn't. None of that stuff worked. My grips were weak. I sucked. The only rounds I was getting were getting absolutely smashed by black belts. Or not black belts at the time, but like brown, purples. I was just getting smashed by these guys who were really good at jiu-jitsu. And now I'm getting smashed by guys who aren't good at jiu-jitsu. And it's making me realize I'm not really good at jiu-jitsu anymore. So for me, the idea that I had was to kill my ego, and then my idea that I had was to really just get mat time in. So I have to start doing as much jiu-jitsu as I can because I've taken so much time off. And then I got better and got better and got better. And then eventually I started to beat those guys using my old game. So I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. We can do that. And then they immediately caught up with me. So like basically like me and the Head Nod white belts until I got to brown belt, honestly. It was just like, I'd be here, they'd be here, be here, be here. And we just chased each other whole time, and I'm like, man, this kind of sucks. Like, these guys are really good. And a lot of that is just like, you're a really good coach. Our town has some extremely tough guys in it. So anybody who comes in off the street, they're going to be, if they have the mind for jiu-jitsu and can like learn how to grapple, they're going to be pretty good at it. And then I think that just the way that our gym was, even then in the early days, like now we're kind of like notoriously the tough gym. But like even back then,
you could have just said we're kind of like notorious.
Yeah,
you could have just ended it with that.
Just in general, we're kind of like the whole ego thing that I was talking about. Like some guys got that, you know what I mean? So like, that didn't die for everybody. So it was just like a tough environment to like get good at it again. And then as everybody got good, we all kind of grew together. So like for me, anybody, like the advice I would have for anybody who's quit jiu-jitsu, and like I've tried my best at black belt. I was like, you gave me my black belt, a month ago, I don't know how long it's been.
Well, spoiler alert.
A while ago.
Justin, we were almost to that part. Shoot. Yeah, I guess I did.
I'm a black belt in jiu-jitsu. So, I I wanted to do what your dad did for me and like try and bring dudes back into the fold. So like that's my focus. Like I'm like gonna try and get dudes who like stop training.
Got to get the band back together, dude.
Like and like we had like some good dudes back then, and like if we could get that squad like back training, like masters divisions, dead. They're dead. So I'm doing my best to reach out to those guys and be like, hey, like come back and train. But the main advice I can have is like it's never too late to come back. And even if you come back, like I think that the ego is a real big problem for people because they were good. Even if they weren't good, you might think that you're way better than you really were. Mm-hmm. And you come back and you're getting beat up by guys who you would have killed. I mean, I've seen it happen. I mean, how many times have you seen somebody get good at jiu-jitsu, take a month off, come back, get beat up, and then they quit?
Quit completely. Yep.
Yeah, like it happens all the time. I mean, we've seen, I don't even learn my students' names until 2 months later because they're going to wash out. You're going to have dudes who come in and wash out, especially at our gym. Really tough gym. My class is basically, I teach a concept, teach a move, and then we're rolling for 45 minutes.
To the death.
And they're hard rounds. We're not, my class isn't a designated winner class. It's a you're going to be the winner class.
That's my volume day. That is my, I go and just obliterate white belts.
Same.
And just try to kill them all. Maybe do one round with you, one other round with one of the tougher guys, and then I'm kind of like,
That's what you gotta do.
I need to fight some more white belts, man.
I figured that the idea of our gym is like you have guys like Huff's really good at like teaching technique. You're really good at teaching technique. You're really good at like having this like designated winner style of training where like you guys have like these concepts and you like are good at that. And like I'm still like the old school like bad Brazilian black belt. He's like, yeah, bro, we just gonna roll. And like that's all we're gonna do. Like we're just
You're gonna learn today.
Yeah, I'm gonna teach you a concept. I'm gonna teach you an idea of like, hey, here's the position that we're in. This is something that can help you. Here's a move that has to do with that concept. And now we're gonna fight to the death. I literally just yell fight and clap my hands and turn on the clock. And then like I'm doing rounds with them. Like I'm out there beating them up and getting beat up too.
So again, spoiler alert, now you're teaching, right?
Yeah,
so you're teaching now. You've made, and these were all pre-brown or pre-black belt things, you know, the fact that you're teaching, but also we did tweak how we were all training anyway.
Yeah.
And I really think for you might have experienced more benefit than any of us in that, you know, in this time period. So I just thought I would kind of open up to just talk about that, just about the new training, new lifting and how that's been, and just some different thoughts on training.
Yeah. So
now that in the story you are a brown belt, you're a brown belt in the story. We'll get to black belt.
So I get my brown belt, and it was February 2020. We all know what happened immediately after that. The world like tanks.
Dude,
so,
they
like,
got us good there.
Dude, yeah. So like,
how are you gonna put the down payment on a new jiu-jitsu school, Josh, and then grand opening the last day of the month in February of 2020? Come on, dude, get it together.
So like, I guess to kind of like go a little bit before the brown belt, like purple belt. I got my purple belt, and I was like, I need to start taking this seriously because I'm a purple belt now. Like I had never rolled with a purple belt that like in the modern times, they used to beat them up. Modern purple belts beat the shit out of me at this point. So I'm like, I need to really like ramp it up. So, and I wanted to compete again. So I'm like, I need to start training a whole bunch. I trained a whole bunch. I competed. I lost because I fought in an open division. Had to fight a 265-pound black belt my first match back in however many years.
Welcome back, baby.
Yeah, welcome back. I had a gigantic bruise on my arm from this dude trying to rip my hands apart. So then we get brown belt comes, and then world shuts down for a little bit, and we may or may not have been training with newspaper up on the windows.
Chill, dude.
No, nobody knows. Well, I said may or may not. I mean,
okay, sorry.
I wasn't. I would never look. First off, when it comes to obeying the government, I would never go against them. Everything that they say is 100% right. I would never question anything. I would never commit any illegal activity that would be deemed, nefarious or harmful. I would never do that. So during the coronavirus,
you're a saint, dude.
I 100% wasn't, the first couple months.
You should write a children's book, man. What a good guy.
I'm the perfect person. I'm amazing. So let's just say that, once the world opens back up, we all start training.
We don't need to throw dates around anymore.
Yeah.
I noticed that when I have people on the podcast that like I'm always really broad on that because people won't be like us and just be like, yeah, we were training.
Yeah.
But I'll talk to people and they will be like, oh well, it was a few years ago. I'm not really sure. I'm like, bro, we were training together.
Yeah.
Come on.
First off, what are you gonna do about it? Like we all had Like, it's not like we were like out. We were only training jiu-jitsu together. We weren't
With-
like going
yeah.
out and doing other stuff.
That's very true.
So like we had a pod, which was, you know, that was totally fine. The CDC said you could have a pod of up to 5 people.
5. Wow, that's what we did.
We only
Anyway,
had 5 people.
let's get back to your
So
lifting
now-
regimen that started in 2021, July 1st, when the world opened back up.
Yeah, that's right. So I got my brown belt, and I was like, all right, this is the last belt before black belt. And like, honestly, like you've talked about before, like brown belt's kind of stupid. By the time you get your brown belt, you're just like a bad black belt, usually. In my case, I was like...
You're a diet black belt.
In my case, I was like a good purple belt whenever I got my brown belt. But I was like, I really need to buckle down. So we start lifting. And I started lifting, I mean, man, like it's probably been like a year and a half now, maybe. And just the gains that I've got from that have helped my jiu-jitsu a lot. I've always been like pretty like isometrically strong, like I can squeeze for a long time and stuff. But like we start lifting, your dad comes up with a lifting program for us. And it's, I mean, we've got like a few guys that lift every Monday. Like we lifted right before this.
Yep.
And man, like I immediately noticed a big strength increase. And then I took that strength increase and I was like, okay, now I need to focus my training on how to get good at jiu-jitsu. Like, what am I doing that's not good? So instead of learning, like, I was always like the technique collector, right? Like, I'd like collect techniques. I was like, I'm going to just start learning in concepts and ideas. So like one that I like to use is head or hip height. Like which one, whoever wins that battle. Like if I'm trying to get up, if my hips can get higher than your hips or my head can get higher than your head,
I win.
I win. So I immediately started doing that. And like, dude, like there were guys who give me really tough rounds and beat me sometimes. And I started just doing that to get on top and go for guillotines. Stop beating me. You know, like they don't beat me now. So it's like, okay, that's pretty cool. Let me start to recircle around on that. So I would just start working all these things. So I focused my training to get good for black belt because at black belt, I plan to compete a lot. So I want to be at least in the best shape of my life, which right now I am. So we're lifting all the time. We're doing sprints. I bought a bike. I'm riding a bike now. So I'm riding bikes all the time for cardio. So anyway, for me, it was about like, I'm going to get good at jiu-jitsu and I want to really make a good tournament run. So I focused everything. And like in the last, honestly, like the last year, 6 months, I've gotten better than any other time in jiu-jitsu. Like I was like, and like I could tell because like people will tell you whenever you're getting good at jiu-jitsu and they're like, dude, you feel good. But mostly because everyone I roll with just says I'm strong and I'm honestly not using that much strength. So I know a lot of it's technique. And yeah, I am strong. Like I am stronger now than ever thanks to like lifting weights. That's another thing. Like, if you guys, like I know there's a lot of famous jiu-jitsu guys who like really look down on lifting weights. But like if you aren't lifting weights, you're doing a gigantic disservice. And it's not something where you have to be like in the gym for like 5 days a week doing 2-hour workouts. Like we lift like it's like 30 minutes tops, including sprints. And I lift 1 time a week.
1 time a week.
1 time a week. And I've gained like 10 pounds of like just weight. Some of it's probably fat.
I don't think so. I think you've probably gained 10 pounds of muscle in that last 18 months. Just strength wise, you've gotten so much stronger, you know. And I know for me even that I've gained so much just in that.
With everybody who lives with us, like JD, we got purple belt JD, who notoriously for his size was extremely weak. Like he's my best friend, so I can like rag on him. But like
Couldn't be weaker.
Couldn't be badder at jiu-jitsu.
Or a worse person for that matter.
Basically, he's like a bigger dude. He's like 190, and like no offense to him, but he was a really weak 190. Like as me not lifting weights, I could kind of muscle him around at 190. So he's lifting with us now, and the dude's like gotten extremely strong. Like it's like shocking. And then you add that with like he is a purple belt, and he has a purple belt like skill level. But like maybe his strength held him back a little bit, and even being a bigger guy lifting once a week, now he's beating guys that he couldn't beat before just based on having some strength.
And that is eventually I'll get my dad on actually pretty soon, and we'll kind of discuss that and what we've been doing a little bit differently and how it's been helpful. But just benefit wise for us, I've noticed for all of us that have done it, it's huge difference.
I feel way different. Like my jiu-jitsu changed so much because I've gotten stronger, and it's mostly like a pace thing. Like I felt like before, like I had like a good like minute of actual pace I could put on someone, but I'd have to break that minute up into seconds. You know what I mean? Like I could really like I could really like beat someone up for like 10 seconds, and I'd be like, all right, I gotta chill. I'm gonna get tired. Now I can keep that same level of strength that I would have. What used to be like my max strength, I can take that same level, and now it's not my max strength. So whenever I use it, I can do that for a minute straight instead of 30 seconds.
So
also it's funny to just like I'm not a big dude, So like, whenever I go with big guys, like we got like a dude, we've just been calling him the giant that came in. And I roll with him, right? Roll with him yesterday. And I grab his hands and I push him to his hips. And he's like, dude, why are you so strong? Like, that's also really cool, too.
Especially when you're not used to people saying that stuff about you. You're like, oh, yeah.
Yeah. People have always been like, you're really strong for your size. Now it's just you're really strong. So that's always good, too. It's a nice, like, boost. And it gives you confidence, too, because I have confidence in my cardio and my strength. That if I get put in a bad position, like, man, I could probably just maybe power man out, especially against someone my size. Like, they're probably not going to be stronger than me. Hopefully. Every 145-pound black belt out there, please immediately right now stop lifting weights. Don't do it.
Get off your cycle.
Yeah, and don't do. Also, we did this without steroids.
Yeah, that's very true.
Gain 10 pounds of muscle without steroids. See you guys do that. And eating nothing but like Whoppers and Big Macs.
Eating only fast food too. Yeah, dang, dude, that's true. We need to chill on the fast food, especially you,
bro. If I was on a diet right now, I'd be in such good shape.
Dude,
I'm like Nicky Ride. My cholesterol's probably sky high. I was gonna get blood work, and then his blood work came out, and I was like, yeah, no, I'm not gonna do it. I don't want to see what's going on.
100% honest. I've been hitting the diet pretty hard. I literally have 3 abs. That's 2 more than I've ever had.
I have 2 all the time, but it's like I think it's really one big one. I think the top one's just 1 ab. So I don't think it counts.
I have 3 individual abs, and I don't mean to brag, but Emily said that she could almost see the outline of a 4th.
Whoa. Dude, that's pretty good for you because you're fat.
I'm pretty fat, right? And so, yeah, that's pretty nice. Anyway, let's move on. Let's at least get to the last chapter in the story, at least to this point, which is a few months ago, we do belt promotions. You kind of are aware that you were going to get promoted.
Yeah, I mean, you told me.
I did tell you. I'm not a huge, especially with black belt, I'm not a huge... you need to surprise this guy thing. One, because like if you're good enough to be a black belt, I think you should probably know.
Yeah, you know. I think so.
I don't think I was second guessing when Kyle when he promoted me. I was like, I think I think that he's right. All the other belts, I think I could have been like, I could see this being wrong.
I think basically like the 2 belts where you know that you're that level is like blue belt. Whenever you really start beating up all the other white belts and you start getting close to the blue belts, and then black belt. Like you're a black belt. Like I knew I was a black belt. 6 months before you gave me a black belt. I'm like, yeah, I feel really good. I'm feeling really good. I'm finally reaching that level. And then also I started teaching. So like I felt like starting off my classes, and like still probably like a lot of the dudes are probably gonna like comment and be like, yeah, dude, your classes are still really like rough. but like starting off, like they were like the Wild West, and like it still kind of is.
They
but, like,
still are kind of the Wild West.
At least I like have a cohesive game plan to teach. I'm a lot better at teaching than I was. But like doing that and like getting to that level, like I was like, okay, I can actually teach guys. And like I'm seeing people, like we went to like a tournament and I helped coach, and I'm seeing people hit stuff that I taught, and I'm like, that's it. I'm a black belt. I'm complete. I've worked with these guys for several months, and they're hitting the stuff that I showed them, and they're doing
it's working
in a cohesive manner that's working for them. And now I'm coaching them at a tournament to do those things, and they're winning.
Yeah, man. I think that. I think that's awesome. I think that. When you are looking at jiu-jitsu from that perspective, that there are all these other ways that that it can be used. It is nice to go, okay, well, I can teach. I can show somebody this knowledge that I have doesn't just end with me. But as you got, we get to that night, you get promoted. What is kind of your? Do you have any moment of, man, that? If I worked really hard for this, or any kind of thought towards it?
Basically, like that whole day, I was just kind of like, man, like it's actually going to happen. I'm actually going to have a black belt. But to me, it's not as big of a deal because I don't wear a gi very often. So like if prior to that point, like, all right, this is going to be weird too. So like whenever people come in and I train with them, like a lot of times, like I go kind of easy on them at first, right? And then I'll ramp it up as we go. So a lot of guys, like they didn't know I was even a brown belt. Like, a lot of guys thought I was, like, a blue or purple belt. Except for the guys that really put it on. They're like, I got promoted, and they saw me, like, in a brown belt, and they're like, dude, you're a brown belt? Like, I remember one guy was like, I thought you were, like, a high-level blue belt. And I was like, yeah, dude, because I don't, like, stomp you into the mat. Like, my bad, I'll start if you want. So, for me, it was kind of fun. But the whole day I'm thinking, like, I'm going to be a black belt. This is a culmination of, at this point, 14, almost 15 years of my life. And if you look at it, like I laid out all my belts and I took a picture and I was just like, the last 15 years of my life can be told in belts. And I can look at each belt and I can remember the good times and the bad times, for better or for worse. White belt, all this stuff, blue belt, this stuff happened. And then at brown belt, I got divorced. And it's like, okay, we have to focus. This is a really bad time in my life. It can go one of two ways. I can either tank it or I can be better for it. So you take a big turn that way. And then black belt, for me, brown belt was the worst belt, right? Brown belt, I had the worst time in my life. And I was able to take that and kind of just refocus it into, I'm going to be a black belt. And I'm going to make black belt the best belt and the best part of my life. So now we're here. Everything's going great in my life. And I feel good in jiu-jitsu. We're getting ready to make a big tournament run. We're in shape. We're going to crush it. So that was what I was thinking about that day. A really weird time in my life preceded what will now be the best time in my life. And it starts off with one of my best friends giving me my black belt after training for so long. So for me, it was a really cool day. One of the best days of my life, obviously. And then my aunt and uncle, who always supported me, got to come check it out. My parents were there. It was just a nice like culmination of events. And like whenever you look at the journey, and like to call it like a jiu-jitsu journey is like lame and overstated, but like if you look at like the road from white belt to black belt, you have all this stuff that happens in between it. And really, honestly, unless you're living a way better life than me, a lot of it's not great. You have a lot of bad stuff happen to you during this stuff. And you can either quit jiu-jitsu and stop. And then you have all that bad shit happening. And then you don't have jiu-jitsu to deal with it. And you, I don't know, start smoking meth like half of Granite City. Or you use jiu-jitsu.
Whoa, that's a strong statistic.
All right, 75%.
Okay.
So you either refocus it on jiu-jitsu and you keep going and you get to black belt. And then that could be the best part of your life. You're going to have bad things happen to you the whole time away. Blue belt, terrible relationship, life fell apart. Purple belt, great times in my life. Got married, had a good time. Brown belt, got divorced, bad time. Life falls apart again. Black belt, life has come back together. You have seasons in your jiu-jitsu. You have seasons in your life. Same thing as hitting a plateau whenever you're not getting good or whenever everybody catches up to you and you sink down. You just got to keep going.
And man, that is so true. You almost had me had a tear there. That was a little strong there to hit me with. But
especially after all the goofy shit.
Especially I didn't see it coming. But yeah, dude, when you think about how hard life can be, and you've lived any period, we were, we're best friends at 14 years old, 15, 16 years old. And when you are looking from that perspective, you do think that you have so much of life figured out. You have so many things figured out and you're sure you know how your plan is going to go and how things are going to work. And then it doesn't go that way.
No, it doesn't at all.
And the only thing that you can and this is my big reason for jiu-jitsu and why people should train it, is the only thing that you can do is hope that you as an individual are a strong enough person and a good enough person to be able to get through those things, because they're going to be unavoidable. And then when you do that, if you're a black belt, someone who could endure, somebody who can say, after these big moments in my life, after these triumphs, after these failures, after all of these things, I am tough enough to wake up tomorrow and show up to train.
After it. You're going to go train. And like, if you can wake up on your worst day and go do jiu-jitsu, at least you're going to go do jiu-jitsu. Your day that day might just be full of you being depressed and sad. And it might be a bad day every other way. You might go have a terrible day at work. But you can always go get on the mat. And like, the main thing is like, you can take it out on people. like you can like be like, dude, like my life's falling apart, but I'm going to kill you today.
Jeff is dead.
I'm going to ankle lock Jeff until his leg snaps.
Dude, Jeff couldn't be any worse. What a disappointment.
So, like, he's a disappointment because he won't do Darces, bro. He has, like, a gym full of people who raised them as his own child. Like, I literally call him my son. And he's like, I'm not going to do Darces and be good at them. He doesn't, but he sucks at them, and he won't learn how to be good at them. We need to smack him around more.
To me, he's like, and I'm sure we've all probably been this friend at some point. You know how like every time their kid has a friend that's just always around, he's always eating your food, and you're basically raising him, but you're like, this is like, he's a terrible kid. That's how, he's not like I don't think of Jeff as my son. I think of him as that kid.
No,
I think of him as the kid that all my kids play with.
I think of him as my son only because my first interaction with Jeff, I was in line for the bathroom. And he was like in the way, and I was like, bro, I gotta piss. You're gonna need to get out of my way right now. And he spun around. He goes, "Fuck you, old man. Look at your hairline." And I was like, "Whoa!" I'm like, "That's me at 17. This is my boy." And I just like,
Then you adopted him.
I'm like, I like this kid. This kid reminds me of me. Jeff is basically like us, but way better at that age. Like, dude, like if Jeff was a blue belt, I wouldn't have had like at same time, 2008, I wouldn't have had any tournament success. He would beat me every time.
Bro, I'll tell you this right now. At 17 years old, at 18 years old, I'm thrashing Jeff Wilson. You give me a time machine. You bring 18-year-old Josh McKinney here. He is stomping.
Oh, yeah,
Jeff.
18. I was thinking like 16,
he just turned 18.
No, I'm killing him when I'm 18.
I'm
He's
eating
getting
that kid
to
up at 18.
Yeah.
So now that we're on this part of the story, I feel like now would be a great time to bring up when you said the F word in front of Cindy.
Oh, okay. So I don't know if you guys remember this video game. It's kind of a niche one. It's a Rockstar game. So like it's the people who made Grand Theft Auto. It's called State of Emergency. Do you remember it?
Yeah, I do.
So like the whole game is you're in a riot, right? So we're in a riot in the game. Right?
Video games, man.
It was a riot and you're fighting the government. So don't ever do that for sure.
This episode comes full circle.
It does.
Yeah.
So basically in the game, at the time, my parents, like the living room was where I played video games. So I'm sitting there and I'm playing on like PlayStation 2 this game, and my mom was like doing something in the kitchen. And I thought she had like left to go somewhere. So I'm like playing video games, and like I went down, and like in State of Emergency you could get a minigun and you could just like back up into a corner and you just mow people down. And I was like doing that, and a cop came up and hit me, and I dropped the minigun and I couldn't find it. So I just go, "Man, where the fuck is my minigun?" And my mom's like, "Justin, Steve, and Kichler, what the fuck did you just say?" And I'm like, "Well, first off, that's where I learned it."
Yeah.
But at the same time, like, she was very mad at me.
Yeah.
She was like, "I can't believe you said that." She like told my dad. My dad's like, "Why would you cuss in front of your mom?" I'm like, "Dude, I didn't think she was there." Like,
yeah. To be fair, I just didn't know. I just didn't know.
I have said it. Basically, like I have like a profanity switch I can flip on her. like if I'm around my mom, I'll like flip the switch and I won't cuss. If I'm around my dad, it gets flipped halfway. He doesn't get like my dad hasn't heard me say the F word since that time I almost killed that timekeeper at that Naga.
I remember that. That's another
good story.
That was a great story.
I was like, yelling a lot of stuff. That was really embarrassing because my whole family was there, including my grandma. And I told the guy that like a one-armed baby could do his job. And
you told him you were gonna murder him.
I did.
And you called him fat.
If it wasn't for you, that man would have been assaulted.
Yeah, he would have been dead.
He would have been getting in a fight that day. And also, I was worried that he was going to be my timekeeper for my match. I was worried that I was just going to get disqualified.
It didn't seem like you were too worried about it.
Afterwards, well, he like made a big mistake, man. Like
he did.
You can't be a timekeeper and let the match run over like a minute and a half.
It's time. Literally like.
If it's not the final,
it's the name of your position.
Timekeeper. You keep the time.
Keeper.
Instead, he's the time loser. He's
dude.
He's just a loser in life.
Yeah.
I hope wherever that guy is today, I hope it's bad. All the positivity that I just brought going out the window. I hope that guy's life tanked for what he did to my boy Robbie in that match.
Robbie won the match, man.
He did. It was a good match. But he was tired going into the final and won that too.
Anyway, so
Naga timekeeper.
Yeah, at this point, I feel like we've really hit a lot, and we've already agreed that you're willing to come back on the show again.
I'll come on every week.
Yeah,
we have enough stories over the last 15 years. I could really tell some good ones that I didn't get into because I got really sidetracked.
I think this whole thing was pretty much a sidetrack.
It was all one big sidetrack.
But we could have went 100 different ways on the same episode, which means you should definitely come on again. But before we get to that, is there anything, if anybody was interested in following Justin Kichler and his journey, is there any way to do that?
Well, I have an Instagram. It's darswing_duck. You can follow that. I'll probably start posting more on it. Right now, it's just pictures of like my cat and
knives. Yeah, a lot of knives.
But
which is probably sending a questionable kind of. Maybe you should explain that that's your job.
Yeah. So I sell knives. That makes sense. I'm not gonna say where because I've said some questionable things on the podcast.
You've said a lot of questionable things, yeah.
But at the same time, I collect knives, sell knives, stuff like that. So there's a lot of knives on the Instagram right now. I'm going to definitely flex more into the Jiu-Jitsu side of things soon. It's just trying to come up with content and stuff. So follow me on there. I'm I don't know if you like anti-government rambly memes. Make sure you check out my story, and like they're pretty good stuff. If you like Chris Benoit memes, add me on Facebook, Justin.
I'll just send them to you.
I'll Facebook Messenger you Chris Benoit memes. Another thing is like if you guys have any like questions, as far as my students that listen to this go, like make sure you hit me up for questions. You guys don't ask enough questions, so please ask me questions. I do a Q&A like once a month, and like you losers are giving me like one question. And
I always ask questions when I'm there.
You do. It's good.
Yeah, I'm a big question asker.
You are. And
I'll take everybody's time. I have no problem with like, okay, well, let's just focus on my problems then, since nobody wants to say anything.
Dude, I think that, so like, I know that we were about to wrap up the podcast, but I think that that's a really good way to learn jiu-jitsu. Is like you have one person who asks a question at Q&A, and then that just becomes the topic of the class, because everybody has like questions and they're just embarrassed to ask them. So like, please start asking me questions. Like, please, for the love of God, ask me questions. You guys don't ask enough questions.
Just in general, probably anyone listening could ask more. You know what I mean? Yes. Yeah, just with so many different things, it is just so much easier if you are informed, if you communicate with people. Is there anything you want to add to finish?
No, man, that's pretty much it. Thanks for having me on. I think it was a good podcast for us. I don't know. It was a fun conversation with my friend. I'm not sure how well it's going to translate to a podcast format.
That's the beauty of podcasts.
And I will be back. And maybe next time it'll be more focused and we'll have like a topic to talk on. But like, I'll do this every week. I don't care.
Yeah, I had a blast, man. I'm glad that you did it. Thank you for being on the show.
Thank you for having me.
And that is the episode. I just want to thank you guys for checking this one out. Like I told you guys, Justin is hilarious. He'll definitely be on the show again. He's offered, and I'm obviously very excited, happy to have him back on again. Maybe even with some other guests with him. Maybe eventually we'll do some with he and I and a third person, and I think that would be fun too. But man, Justin and I together have so many different stories, as you guys know, and so many different fun experiences. And you get to see a side of, less professional and less adult Josh McKinney, just the kid that was also one of those annoying 17-year-old gyms or kids at your gym. You have them too. And maybe one day they'll be Josh McKinney and Justin Kichler. And so that is all I have for you guys today. Make sure that if you guys wanting to get better at jiu-jitsu, that you're checking out simplifyingjujitsu.com right now. 50% off the entire month. Never done a deal like it. That is the most we've ever given off any instructional, and we are giving that percentage off every instructional. And so that is for the entire month of May. If you use promo code NEWSTUDIO, make sure you get on that. Make sure you're treating the teenagers in your gym very well, because one day they're going to be better than you and way healthier than you are, and then they're going to give you payback. And so watch out for that. And most of all, hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. I hope today's episode helps you guys suck just a little bit less at jiu-jitsu. Have a great day, guys.